cities do as far as public comment and sign-up procedures for their meetings, and how that relates to the town's current practices, and any then go over any recommendations for changes that the board may want to consider. The town's current procedure, the way we have residents provide public comment, is during the non-agenda and consent agenda items, residents are asked if they'd like to present or provide public comment on any of those items by the mayor. Anyone can come up to the podium to speak about any of those topics that are not on the agenda or on the consent, and then they give their name and place of residence, which could be just Superior, Colorado. And then during public hearings, similar process, the mayor would ask anybody in the audience who would like to provide public comment, and they would come up and give their name and place of residence, and then provide their public comments. This procedure we've been using for some time now, and allows a great deal of flexibility for the board to seek public comment. We attached a survey that Phyllis Harden, our town clerk, put together for the board to consider what other cities do. Most of them are about the same. Lafayette has a sign-up sheet, which is then given to the mayor, and then the mayor reads the names of the people to come up and provide public comment. The town of Erie does the same procedure. Let's see, the city of Thornton has a sign-up sheet that's given to the clerk, and then the mayor asks who wants to speak, and the clerk announces the person's first name, and then they come up and speak. So most of these are typically the same way. Louisville has a sign-up card, which is different than a sign-up sheet, and which is given to the mayor, and the mayor calls the names of the people. So the one difference from most of the cities is the city and county of Broomfield. They don't have a sign-up sheet. Unless there is an issue or an item that they think is going to get a lot of public feedback and comments at the meeting, then they, at that time, will use a sign-up sheet. But otherwise, they just kind of do it how we do it, where they ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to come up and speak, and then they allow them a certain amount of time to speak. Each of the cities has a different time limit. Anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes is typical, it looks like, from what other cities do, and I think ours is 5 minutes? 5 minutes. So that's a quick summary of what other cities do.
And Boulder's pretty much like Louisville. I don't remember if it's 3 or 5 minutes, but it's a card, and they call it up.
Yeah. So we can do whatever the board would like as far as this procedure goes. My recommendation is to just keep it as it is. It seems to, like I said, offer the greatest amount of flexibility for the board to get public comment. If you were to go to something like what one of these other cities do, it would be important, I think, to adhere to that practice. So, because if you adopt something like that, where for somebody to provide public comment, they sign up, and then the mayor reads the names, and then you ask anybody else if then people aren't going to sign up because they feel like they don't need to, because you're going to ask anyway. So, so that would be the one thing there. I think if you're going to go to a sign-up sheet or a card, you would need to stick to that process.
Yeah.
One either advantage or disadvantage, and I'm not sure which I consider it, is that you don't end up with a back and forth. So the person gets up and they speak, and then that's their time. And if someone else says something, then that person doesn't come back and say,
right.
"Oh, but and I don't know if it's an advantage or a disadvantage. I'm just saying that's one pretty significant difference from what we get now."
Yep.
Yeah, had a comment from a resident that thought that could be a negative, because if some resident came up with one opinion and gave a presentation, sat down, someone came up and gave a different opinion, then they wouldn't really have the opportunity to come back up and address the residents' concerns. So,
Yeah.
to me, I don't see the benefit of it. I mean, have we ever had an issue at all with having the system that we have in place now? Even with the large groups, it seems like everybody gets heard and gets cycled through and all that.
Yeah. I mean, when you have an issue that's generating a lot of interest and could have potentially a lot of public comment, if you get a lot of the back and forth, one downside to that is the amount of time that it takes.
Yeah.
It could take hours if you had a lot of people. So.
Yeah. So I would certainly like to be able to continue to hear their comments as much as possible, because it's important. I mean, it's nice, we appreciate it when we get a big group here and we get the talking back and forth, but I would sure hate to stifle any of that.
The times when we've had big groups, I've sensed that there was more voluntary, not repeating. I mean, we've even asked people, we haven't forced people to not repeat, but, it's been fairly compliant with that. And I think we're talking about fixing something that's not broken. And I like our current procedure. I've always liked it. I ran the planning commission very much the same way and liked that too. Don't see it as a problem.
I'm fine with it as it is, but to be devil's advocate on the possible reason to sort of do a hybrid policy on the hot button issues, I would find it useful to do something similar to, or consider something similar to what, which one is it, that does the support, oppose, neutral, state capital, whatever, on the hot button issues where you've got a large crowd. If we required sign-ins on just that, where they mark support, oppose, and neutral, and that were appended to the minutes as a standing record, we would then know how that particular group, that particular evening fell in terms of their opinion on that issue. So that may not be a net, advantageous if we give up some of the other flexibility, but it still does trouble me that sometimes when there's a large group, all we say is the following gave public comment, and we list the name, and we don't list support versus oppose versus neutral, and so it doesn't become a matter of record.
And I heard from Trustee Williams and Gregor's, and they were both, their comments to me were, they felt we should keep our current process as it is.
Okay.
I think it would be great to maybe take a count of hands or something like that of the people attending for support, non-support, whatever, along with public hearings for those in attendance. That would be good by me.
And we've done that before, when there's big crowds and not everybody wants to talk, kind of get a general consensus of where people are at.
I mean, then put it...
And then record it in the minutes?
That's what I'm saying.
We, in the past, used to have a sign-in sheet right out in the lobby that people could sign in if they came in, but it was voluntary and optional. Wasn't something, and it was just to help us get the names right in the minutes and stuff like that. I mean, we could start doing that again if the board wanted to, but it'd be completely out. I mean, George Kuffner Sr., he never signs that thing, but we know.
So you'd enter that as record in the minutes?
Well, if they get up
Sign
and
in?
speak, only if they get up and spoke to the board for public comment, then Phyllis has their name, and so it's, because sometimes it's not clear on the tape or something like that.
Sure.
That'd be the only reason you would use it.
It seems to create another step of work, so I don't know. It seems to be working the way it is.
Okay.
But I do think it's worth noting that the majority of the other communities have a sign-in, so that might be a direction we move in the future, I don't know.
Maybe they have huge turnouts.
No, they don't. Louisville never, yeah.
Yeah.
Boulder, not very many either, except for, bag bands.
All right. So I thought we might have some additional time.
Yes.
And I thought if the board is open to it, we might discuss the advisory committee appointments, not make any decisions, but at least there's some discussion that we didn't get a chance to talk about as far as there's a number of vacancies that have specific slots, 2-year terms, 1-year term with a 3-year reappointment option, 3-year term with a 3-year appointment. And I didn't know how to, I didn't want to assume anything on slotting names into those vacancies, so I left it blank. And I thought this might be a good opportunity to discuss the board's preference on how to fill those.
Well, so who is blanked on who wanted to transfer,
Nathan Ruff.
wants to transfer to?
Yeah, he resigned from ProStack and is interested in OSAC.
Okay,
So that creates 3 vacancies on ProStack.
great.
And we had three people who indicated that as their first option for ProStack.
Okay.
And then we have 5 vacancies, I believe, on RCAC, and 5 vacancies on the Open Space Advisory Committee, and 2, I believe, 2 on Historic Commission and 2 in Planning Commission.
So we could, if we just forget planning commission, then there's enough or more than enough slots for everybody who applied, right?
It's only planning commission
Yes.
that isn't showing.
That's correct.
So I might as well put them on those slots, right?
But then figuring out who belongs in what term, I'd say we do it by
The-
drawing
the
a
ter-
hat.
Yeah, the
Drawing a hat on
term
the hat.
is, I guess, another question. So,
Right.
I mean, is everybody okay with just putting those people in there?
Can we discuss?
Yes, but it's which people where.
And that's what I'm
Right.
saying, that if there's only a question of term, I'd say we do it by a drawing.
Well, I'm going to ask for clarification on the term in any event, because I, ahead of the meeting, brought up that my interpretation and my intent in reading this, and it may not have been everybody's interpretation, was that partial terms don't count towards the 2-year limit. So,
Correct, I sent you the updated copy of the
okay,
Yep.
they don't. So, in fact, how you deal with new...
2-term limit?
To me, everybody would, if they got less than 1 term to start with, had 2 terms eligibility thereafter. Obviously, that may not be clear as written, clear in our understanding as written, and may need to be tweaked to become clear, so we're all on the same page on that. So I didn't interpret this as a problem of fitting people into slots.
And I
But-
think I remembered this differently. I thought the discussion was that the board didn't want partial terms to not count, or they did want partial terms to count. So,
Right. We did have that discussion, but I think at that time, there was no appetite for messing with things further, and we said we'll amend it at a later time
Okay.
if that comes up.
That may have happened, I just think the last version of the ordinance that I have.
And you agree that partial terms do not count?
Well, that's like, again,
that was
I
a
don't know.
Yeah, that's where I am.
discussion that we
Yeah,
had, and
right.
that for most things everywhere, partial terms at the board don't count to
Right.
term limits, and so why would we do something different for the
Right.
committees?
Okay, so that ordinance never passed, is that what happened with those? Do you know?
No, it did pass.
Yeah, it passed.
It passed.
It's different than the one I have.
No, the one you have agrees, I think the one you have is correct, that partial terms do not count towards the 2-year limit.
Okay.
So
The one I have crosses out that language, so.
See, this is what I have.
So Does anybody have any, we're not, once again, voting, does anybody have any problem with partial terms not counting to the two-term limit?
We do need to see the ordinance because
Yeah, we have to know.
you have to do with the work, I mean, that's.
I guess what I'm just saying is that if it's not clear,
I don't, I'm trying to remember. We had a couple of
if
things.
it's not clear,
we came up with you.
Phyllis, you can certainly go get it, but otherwise we can do this.
Was that in the wording?
Well, I think we do actually need to know if
Yeah,
there's
it's not- that was just how we
ordinance that
do
got
this
passed.
Yeah,
If mine's
definitely.
different than what got passed, which is.
I'm just saying is that if it's
Well, and we
if it's
may-
not the intent of the,
Yeah.
you get where the intent of the, I
Right.
think most of the board is, and if
Right.
it's not like that in the ordinance, it needs to come back as a written ordinance.
Otherwise, I felt
Right.
like
Next
we were
meeting
pulling
or
a rabbit
something.
out of a hat.
It may-
You know what?
And in fact, even if it says they do not count, we might want to revisit that to make some distinction, because if in fact somebody resigns because they're moving to another location a month into their first 3-year term, the person who takes that over then would have almost 9 years. So we might want to amend that language in any event
Well, we never had to appoint anybody.
to make it more specific. But, so I just wanted to, my understanding was that we had left it in there. So
And
let's check.
again, the version of my system says that we took it out and then specifically said, once a person has served 2 consecutive terms of any duration. So that we were clear that the partial terms did count.
That's how I recollected it,
Okay.
but,
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I don't have.
so we'll firm this up.
Okay.
And then we'll have this discussed at the next meeting if we have enough time. Does that sound fair? In the meantime, we'll appoint all these people, and then we can look at the terms.
Yeah.
So which terms?
Except it's in the,
Or we can change the
oh,
ordinance.
so you specifically left off sort of whether or not that person is eligible for another thing, maybe because of this question? Right now, it only says when they expire. It doesn't say whether or not they're eligible for 1 more term, 2 more terms, or what they're eligible for upon appointment at this, with this expiration date.
Well, we would track it, yeah.
So it won't, if we have this discussion, none of this will be affected? If we change our mind on whether or not people get to have partials count or whatever, none of these particular appointments would be affected? None of these dates?
Well,
Only whether or not they're eligible for 1 or 2
Right, correct.
6 Yes, okay.
Yep.
All right. So we wouldn't be looking at these ordinances again? Thank you.
that's not my recommendation.
I'm really not in favor of spending so much more time on this. Okay.
Agreed.
So it looks like we never passed.
No, yeah. No. What does yours say,
Yeah.
Okay, so partial terms,
But this was never passed according to them.
well, but that's X'd out, so.
Either way.
What does the
It looks
printed
like it needs to be
ordinance say?
cleaned up one way or the other. Does that sound fair?
The current ordinance that was approved by the board has the language in there that partial terms do not count towards
Do not count.
the term limits.
Okay.
Right.
We
No,
were
that's
going
fine.
to amend that, to take that language out. But then, the board went with the chart
Right.
that shows this, for the initial appointment, specific terms for each applicant.
That I remember.
So,
Matt, I'm going to beg to differ with you. That chart showed the completion term of the old person, the senior person who had already served 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. It was intended only to complete that as a special circumstance. It was not intended to restrict any new person that was filling that slot. That new
No, I
person falls into
disagree.
the partial term.
I disagree.
That's how I recall it.
Well, we will review the tape or the
yeah.
record, just so that we can,
Let's do that.
that's why we have these things, so we
Yeah.
will clear that up. So that was my concern, because if you're looking at these things, so the vacancy left by Tom Nybarger, you can have 1 year and then only one 3-year term, which I hope
Right.
that we're not really interested in
Right.
that, right?
Right.
that was the chart that was approved by the board. This chart here.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the board
How this
either has
applies,
changed or
No, how
maybe
this-
hasn't changed.
it how it applies to the old person who has exceeded their 2 3-year terms is different from the way it applies to a new person who takes over.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what the partial terms mean, and that's why the language for the partial terms. The partial terms only applies to a new person taking over. So both of these realities can exist.
Sounds logical to me.
Yeah, I think that we will review this because I thought the specific individuals who had already been on there were identified and what exactly were going to
Yeah.
happen
I think
to
we-
them.
Right.
But as opposed to trying to do this on the fly, once again, my recommendation is let's just review this and figure out exactly where we are.
Well, you want to have staggered. That was
So maybe that's
We
what
want to have
So you
staggered.
have 1 year.
But we don't want people who can only serve for 4 years, right? We
Or
want the-
2 years and be done.
Yeah, you don't want-
That was never the intent, to restrict a new member to 2
So you have a
years.
class, you're sort of doing things by class,
Right.
class of 2012, 13, 14.
So the stagger would still occur, but people would be able to run for 2 terms.
Each of the resolutions specifies who's eligible for additional terms.
Of the existing members.
Of the existing
Right.
members.
And also for even the vacancies.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
But,
You want to read that?
but that was to
For even the
establish the
vacancies.
class system, I think.
Well, so I'll just use this one as an example. Hold on, let me see which one I'm looking at. All right.
Kent and I agree on the vacancies, but only the vacancies that were then vacant when we approved the resolutions. Now we have new vacancies that involve the term-limited members. So a vacancy is not a generic vacancy. There are 2 types of vacancies. The vacancy that was dealt with in the resolution and the vacancy created by the resignation of 2, the term-limited volunteers.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we walk down this chart, figure out what we want to do so it's clear, and then the attorney could then draft that language if any language needs to be drafted.
Okay?
Does that sound fair? So without identifying names, so there's the vacancy in, let's see, this is OSAC, so there's 3 vacancies, and one says you can only have a 2-year term and then you're out. So
Right. That,
that doesn't seem right.
no,
So
it
the
should
one
be
that
2
has
plus
bonds,
2 3-year terms.
That's what I think.
I kind of agree with that.
Say that again, Sandy? 2 plus
2
2
plus
is the
3.
partial term plus 2
2, 3, so 8
3-year
years,
terms.
potentially. total.
Right.
Right.
Unless we go back to the authorizing resolution and tweak that somehow, which is, we can, if we want to.
So, let's see, vacancy, then there's
What,
this one.
do you have the number?
I don't know what page.
Page
hang on.
number.
Can I see that? Sorry.
It's page 105.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's where I want to get to.
So, so that's one vacancy, and then there's 3 more vacancies. 1, 2, 3, 4 more vacancies, right? If I'm reading this correctly, and they all have 1 year plus 1 3-year term.
Right. So the new person, take the shorter end and add 2 3-year terms to it, because all those less than 3-year terms are partial terms.
Yeah. And then when we look at this, getting to your point, say somebody served 1 day,
Right.
do you want them to serve 3 years?
Right.
And
Which
essentially,
may
then so maybe we want to
require
have a
tweaking.
cutoff at 2 years or
Like
something like that.
18 months or less.
Yeah. So,
Or, 1 year or
but for
less.
these right now, all of these people would be able to run for 2 more terms. Is that sort of
That's
where we're
my
at?
understanding.
So,
Yeah, you know what, it almost looks
one
like...
would be 8 and one would be 7.
And if we
Or 3
want
would be 7.
to if that messes up the stagger,
I don't
we
think it
always
will.
have the flexibility as a board at this point to do that.
If you
right
look
now.
at in the notes above each committee, it says 3 members, 2-year max, 3 members, 4-year max, 3 members, 6-year max. So if you make those people just coming in at 8 years max, then you still have your stagger.
Well, that's the question. But the point is, the intent of what we did here was to deal with term-limited members and how we were going to do the stagger to keep continuity within the committee. That was one situation we had to deal with. Now, on this end, if in fact the stagger is destroyed to where we don't have 3, 3, and 3, we can, as a board, reinstate that. And then I do suggest what Lisa said. If we, for example, say, well, we mess up our own stagger and we need to do 3, 3, and 3, we can say, okay, members 8 or 6 and 8 and 9 of the committee shall each only have a total of 5 years. We can establish that just the same way we did in the resolution to keep the stagger. And then how do we fit the applicants into that? I agree with Lisa. Let's draw them out of a hat.
Okay, so look at each one of those and tell me if you disagree. Right now, you've got 2 years, 4 years, and 6 years max. So if you take those 2 years, which are those people that would just be coming in, and put 8, you still have a 2-year
4, 6, and 8.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't trouble me.
So it seems to work okay.
You're just putting them into a particular year for reconsideration.
Right, exactly.
So those 2 years, they'll come up for their first reappointment. And
Right.
the ones that have 1 year will come up after 1 year. And you'll keep the stagger that way.
Okay, so that's OSAC, so, and I think it's probably the same for all of these.
I think it's the same for all of them.
Isn't it?
Yeah. If you look at each, there's 3 members in each one that have 2-year terms max. There's 3 in each one that have 4 years max.
Are those the people whose
And 3
offices are vacant, however?
Yeah, so there's somebody at times, I think there's somebody at times 0, somebody at 2, and then somebody at, there's some people that are getting appointed.
Right.
So I think the
right.
stagger is still there, unless I'm missing it.
Yeah,
And-
I think it's still there.
And if it's not, next meeting,
Fix it.
we
Yeah.
can fix it.
Well, we'll have, 2 or 4 years to worry about it.
Right.
Well, but
And
I
there's
would
going to be
like,
plenty of turnover.
There's going to be turnover in between, so the stagger's going to...
yeah, I would like to fix it as I would like to fix this language here while our memories are fresh about what it is we're fixing. If we do it in 4 years, we've lost enough memory just now.
You might not have the same people.
So, is it clear? Basically, all we're saying is that partial terms don't count towards your,
Which is how the language is now.
okay, if that's how it is,
That's how it is.
That's how it is now.
then this chart just needs to reflect that, because this doesn't reflect that.
And if you run into problems with the stagger where you're not 3, 3, and 3, come back to us and we will amend to make the stagger work.
Would you like me to pull the video from the meeting where this chart was approved?
Yes, staff could certainly do that. I don't want to see it.
Okay.
I trust you to do that, so if that's what the language says, fantastic.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good on the language.
Okay. All right, so I think we're done there, so then we're off to Planning Commission.
Which we have to do in a meeting.
So when are we going to
Just for
discuss the
conversation
particular
about how to
people?
do.
In the board meeting?
Yeah.
Particular, okay.
And just on the Planning Commission one, I received another application for Planning Commission from Bob Monarch.
Oh, so that's a new one.
Yeah.
That's a new one. So the question for the board is, do you want to wait on the Planning Commission appointments and have his interview, or make one appointment, or fill both and kind of keep him? He's not interested in any of the other committees I asked him. So we could always keep him on the list. He's interested in Planning Commission if you wanted to make appointments tonight. So question for you as far as what you'd like to do there. Deborah, I did talk to her. She would prefer to interview Bob and then make appointments, but that was just her comments.
There's no, they have a quorum, they have 7.
Yeah, they'll have some.
And so there isn't a screaming need to fill that tonight.
Although I did hear, I think there was a majority of people who wanted to, was there a majority? Or actually
There
unanimous?
were at least you and me. If I'm finishing your sentence correctly,
Go ahead, finish away.
who liked the first candidate
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I think
came
there
forward.
was unanimity on
There's a
this
second
one.
opening.
Huh? Right. But
I thought we
I
had-
think we all respond very favorably to the first candidate and would be able to appoint that candidate tonight if need
I
be.
thought our process was that we were going to have deadlines and then put people in a pool for the next opening or something
Right,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, what I would have considered this person, but maybe I'm...
No, you're
think
right,
that
that's how I remember it.
I actually was going to raise the issue of service on the Planning Commission as, I would, I'd go either which way, with appointing tonight one candidate versus all the interviews, et cetera. But the Planning Commission, to me, is a very serious position in this community. So I would, I'm not minimizing the advisory committees, but Planning Commission is statutorily mandated, et cetera. So I'd like to
They'll be doing a
take
lot
it
of
very
work.
seriously. Yeah, and now, especially with the comp plan and the town center and all that. And so, anyway, I'm happy to go either way, wait or not wait.
I certainly like to, I know Bob, I recognize the name, I don't know him personally, but I mean, I'd recognize him. I'd like to interview him. And perhaps before we close out this appointment process, I think I would.
So what's the board's pleasure? Do you want to appoint one tonight, or do you want to appoint two at the next meeting? And I don't care.
I can go either way.
I can go either way, too.
Well, let's just appoint them both at the next meeting then.
Okay.
You'll be able to arrange an interview with them?
Yeah, we will.
That's just for the planning commission?
Just the planning commission.
And I would recommend, for the planning commission, if we could do reappointments, because we want to have everybody in June
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
tonight,
yeah. No,
and then
you're right.
fill the vacancies at the next meeting.
Yep.
That'd be all right.
What did you
Can
just
we
say?
reappoint Craig Kraft even if he wants to resign?
Current
like that
members have
Oh. All in
April
favor of that.
appointment date, and we'd like to amend that to June, so. for the
Do them
current-
tonight?
Reappoint the current members
Okay.
to June. They'll keep their same expiration.
And will the new members, we can say they have June expiration
Right.
too. I mean, we can
Yep, yep.
do that.
Yeah, they would be retroactive to June. Yep. All right.
What else do you got for us?
Do you want me to go over my weekly digest, or you want to hold off until
No, I think that
the
better
regular
be.
meeting?
Why don't you go through,
Yeah. Can I just take a quick comment?
yeah?
Champaign Superior and Prostac Chair. There's an assumption regarding appointments that when you have a short term, for stagger reasons, whatever, that people want the longer term. In my experience, we just had this in an HOA case and an appointment. Some people might prefer the short term. So I would just suggest asking first, and you may be surprised. Some people may say, I
Right.
feel better taking the shorter term.
Well, and the good news on that, I agree, Jim, because some people are frightened away by long-term commitments, but the good news is it's two, and at which point they want to re-up or not, and they want to re-up. So there are those little,
Two is the long term.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
so the way you've worked it out, it's probably not an issue right now.
Right.
but
Yeah.
Just thought I'd comment.
Yeah, yeah.
We have had
Right.
that come up in
No.
HOA appointments.
And for my clarification, that's just for the vacancies, right?
correct.
But the current members would
Abide by what you pointed out.
what the chart has.
Right.
Yeah, that was what the chart was all
Right.
about.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, we did not anticipate those resignations, and now we're having to deal with them.
Right,
You could go through you want to go through your weekly digest, in case there's anything, I mean, maybe there's,
Just clarification for me, I mean, what part of this is intended to be on the record in the town board meeting minutes? That's why I sort of,
I view it as more for the board and
Communication.
your opportunity to ask me questions on anything
Okay.
that's in there. But if there's something specific you want me to mention during the
Okay.
regular meeting, I can repeat it as well.
You've typically done it during reports.
Yeah.
And I was just going to call on you on the thing we talked about during my report, so.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. So, sales tax revenue is up, which is always encouraging to see.
And, you always compare it to last year. Can you, how is it relative to, say, the peak year? I'd really love to know, are we, how much are we down over '08 or '09 or whatever would have been that
Oh,
year?
gotcha, from
I'd
when
really
our
love to know
revenue was
that.
at its peak? Oh, okay, yeah, we can have that for you.
Have we
Yeah.
rebounded yet? That's kind of the question
Sure,
I have.
yeah. I'll have that for you in the
Next
next
time.
digest, yeah. Okay. So the flagpole in Nasty Park was installed, and we're working on lighting for that. And then there's been some discussion, I think, even at the Parks Committee, about a possible shelter over there in Nasty Park and some options that are being explored, so,
Matt, if I can go back to
Yeah.
the plaque.
yeah.
There's some conversation in email between Patrick as the staff liaison on Historical Commission and Historical Commission about the size of the plaque that commemorates the war veterans and the current men and women in uniform. And if I'm right, was it a 12 by 12 versus a 12 by 18 plaque?
I
And
didn't see the details on it.
Cost difference was roughly double, I believe, 600 versus 1,200 or something like this. And so if the board has any direction, there was a photograph of a small a sheet of paper of the smaller sign on the boulder over there, upon which this will be attached, versus the larger one. And the larger one clearly fits the boulder better. So if we can give sort of some informal feedback to the Historical Commission, I think we can maybe save a lot of email churning and burning.
what years, or what wars, I guess I should say? All of them. So we have World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the Gulf
And
Wars.
it's not going to list individuals, it's simply going to be the veterans and current military from Superior and the surrounding community because...
In generality.
In generality, because the price of the the initial bronze work or etching and ongoing, et cetera, was so prohibitive. So it was intended to be a place to gather, on Memorial Day and Veterans Day and...
And well, I'd like to say that Afghanistan is the war to end all wars. I'm thinking probably there might be ones in the future, so there'll be space in case it is needed.
You are hopeful. But the point is, I always like to do things right the first time, and I think that first size of plaque, we don't want a little tiny thing on this big boulder. So if we could maybe give our direction to Historical Commission that we would abide by that, I think we could save some energy.
Which would they like, the bigger one?
I think so.
Anybody have any? And you feel pretty comfortable we're in the hundreds of dollars? I mean, it's not going
I
to
think
go from
it's
600 to 25,000.
Yeah, I can look. I think it's $600 price difference, but I can actually go look at that because Patrick just sent that out today.
Hodge and Harris Dam update. Boulder County staff they received a number of bids and they're going through those. The lowest bid is from a qualified company, but they proposed a specific way to restore the dam, and that's what the county's taking their time to make sure that what they want to do to restore the dam will actually resolve the problem and be a long-term solution. So it's taken them a little bit extra time, but
Do you know how much?
they're hoping to have something in front of the county commissioners, by the end of this month, is what I heard.
But you didn't see the dollar figure from the bid.
But, I did, but it's been a while since I've seen it, but it was within the budget,
Okay.
so.
$344 difference.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. I will
Cost an
let
extra
them
buck
know.
to go first class.
The town of Erie, they had some issues with their 2 reservoirs. One was not available to supply water to the residents and businesses of the community. And so they came to us and asked if we could give some capacity in the pipeline, which we could do without harming our supply or our residents. So we allowed that to take place. And
So
they'll
we didn't lease them water, we just leased them.
Right, just capacity of the
Capacity.
pipeline, yeah. And they'll cover any costs that were associated with that.
And that just delayed additional water moving into our terminal reservoirs, is that right?
Yep, exactly. Met with all 3 principals of the schools, Monarch High School, Superior Elementary, and El Dorado K through 8. Had some good meetings. That's their downtime of the year, so talked about snow removal, which was a big one for them, and Superior Elementary is looking at doing a digital sign similar to what El Dorado K has at their school, because they had some kids get up and put some interesting sayings on their display board at the school, so I don't know how they get up there, but they found a way, so they're looking at maybe a digital board. And then Monarch High School's their big thing was they're doing some improvements to the school. They're interested in the underpass potentially, pedestrian improved near the cemetery, access, of course. And then they were happy to hear about the pedestrian activated crossing light going in. So, garden storage. Groundbreaking ceremony is July 10th at 1. If you can attend. They've already got their grading permit, so they're starting to move forward. Let's see. We received 3 proposals for economic development consultant services. We're going to interview 2 of the 3 next week, and then hopefully have some contract for the board to consider in,
Not sure where I was.
hopefully the first meeting in July, maybe the second meeting in July, depends on how quick we can get an agreement in place, scope of services. But some good proposals, so excited, and good pricing as well, so. That statue that was stolen from one of the parks has been replaced.
Not recovered, but
No, replaced.
And checking eBay and Craigslist.
I'm sorry, so Guardian Storage is at July 10th at 1.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. Hopefully it's not 102 degrees outside, but we'll see. We received notification from RTD that they're working to get the glass replaced in the pedestrian bridge. They said within the next 2 to 3 weeks, so it's probably still a couple weeks out, I would imagine.
Okay.
Let's see here. Resolute, I spoke to Chris Barnes, who's representative for Resolute in the property. They said they have another interested hotel developer, and this developer has indicated that their interest in the property is not contingent on ConocoPhillips moving forward, so if that's true, that's good news. And so they'll continue to work with them on trying to work out an agreement to move.
do you know what kind of hotel?
No, they haven't indicated the specific brand yet, but this company, from what I'm told, has a number of hotels throughout the country, so
Okay.
they seem to be a larger.
And there wasn't a number in their name.
Yeah, it wasn't Super 8 or.
Oh, yeah, it's like
Hotel
6,
8 or-
We went Four Seasons.
They spelled
It
it.
wasn't Four Seasons either, right? Yeah.
You and I are on the same page.
Our finance department received another distinguished budget presentation award. This is their 11th consecutive year. Just acknowledging what a great job they do.
And we don't take him for granted, you know that.
Yeah, definitely. Met with Excel Energy at the CML conference last week, and I had a good discussion with them.
So did anybody else lose electricity last night?
Yeah.
You did? We did.
And we lost it at Town Hall as well.
I think I lost my router as a result of that, too.
That had it back on fairly quickly, though.
An hour and a half.
Hour and a half or something.
On your computer? Or your...
Yeah, my home network.
Oh, your home, the whole thing.
Some of the issues we talked about were underground utilities in the original town. Just to keep it on their radar. Response to streetlight outages, I told them that's, one of the biggest things we hear from residents. And then we talked about the franchise agreement because it's good through 2018, but of course they would be happy to start talking to us about renewing it sooner than that.
I'm sure they would.
So I told them we would keep that on.
You said we're holding out for a better offer from Boulder?
And then the last thing we talked about was streetlights, and they said they would be open to the town purchasing our streetlights from them.
Really?
That's surprising.
I was
They
shocked to
didn't- they
hear
didn't
that.
say their price.
They did not. They
course.
did not say the price.
Yeah, their price is high.
And then the youth board started working on projects throughout town. I think Colton Road was one area, you might have seen them out already.
They're roasting out there.
Yeah.
Are we, is it our responsibility to keep them hydrated or
Boulder
theirs?
County supervises the groups, so.
Yeah, I passed them today and
You hope they're not
Had a good
I wanted,
hydrated.
if
Boulder
the
County's
ice cream
pretty good
place said I
about
would have brought them all.
making sure they keep them.
They were
They
roasting.
don't overwork them, keep them hydrated, keep them safe, so. And then the streets program started up, so it's a busy time of year. And then, did you want to give an update on street lights and all, or not? I was mentioning that we received a letter from Excel Energy about not being allowed to put holiday lights on the
Yes.
street lights.
Excel just lost a streetlight case, and honestly, it seems like they're pouting, and so they've invoked a tariff from 1950 stating that there shall be nothing on any of their streetlights. They have not enforced it since 1950-something, they
Wow.
did that. So no holiday lights, no banners.
Well, so much for re-upping that contract.
So we are in negotiations. Of the 18 municipalities we represent, there are some that are very, very upset about this. Some actually paid for streetlights that are banner-ready and paid twice as much for those streetlights, and now are being told that the banner-ready streetlights cannot be used for banners.
Well, we paid for, districts 2 and 3 paid for the streetlights on Rock Creek Parkway,
Right.
so.
So, and the other thing, now they're offering to sell them to us. So, well, if you want to put banners on them, you can sell them. Except the quote, for example, the City of Blackhawk got was between $10,000 and $16,000 per streetlight.
That's insane.
Well, not only that, but the other thing.
16,000 per street.
Per streetlight. And then the other thing that Excel's saying is, well, we can't have banners on, or holiday lights on them because they're all corroded from the mag chloride and they're going to fall over. And so, of course, my response was, well, if they're worthless, why are we paying you between $10,000 and $16,000 for something that we're just going to have to turn around and replace? And they don't have any answer to that.
Of course not.
So, that's.
So we're just allowed,
Because the mag chloride gets up to the top of the light bulb.
No, it just rests around
And then
the
any more
bottom.
wind load, they're.
Anymore, just one. One side is so unsafe, but they're keeping them up. Okay.
Someone at CML who will remain anonymous said to me, I've sailed a lot of boats in my life, and if one tiny little banner is going to make that streetlight fall over, we have a much more serious problem. But,
One sneeze at the wrong time.
so, we'll see. But there is a large coalition of communities working together. Golden and Blackhawk are leading the charge. Denver already negotiated with all Denver's out of it. So. That's
Amazing.
So we'll
Amazing.
continue to fight that battle.
So, I'm sorry to go through this calendar again. So tomorrow's 7 at Superior Elementary, is that right?
That is correct.
And then Wednesday is,
Wednesday is here in the town boardroom at 6:30.
it's 6:30.
And the Wednesday one is, what is, sorry.
It's the interchange and
Yeah.
yeah.
That one I cannot be at
Me either.
on Wednesday.
Okay. And that's just getting
It's public.
Yeah.
feedback on the landscape and
Right.
railing designs for the interchange.
This Wednesday, the 27th?
And then
And then Thursday,
Thursday
Wednesday's
It's a great week to be
6:30
here.
is our joint meeting with the Planning
Planning
Commission on the comprehensive plan update, which starts at 6 p.m. 6 to 8:30.
6:30.
yes.
Here, yeah.
Phyllis will be seeing a lot of you.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are
And
the
then
four.
And then Monday, next Monday.
Monday, I have something I need to say about that, but I won't do it in the meeting, about Monday's meeting.
Okay, just
Yeah,
in terms when it is. So that's at 7, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
That's where?
That is, well, it has to be in Louisville because per their charter, they can only meet as a council in the city limits of Louisville. And it's at the library.
That's
So
the
if we had a
library.
similar law, would we have to meet on the bridge and half of us sit on one side of the bridge and half on the other?
Or we'd have to do some kind of teleconference thing.
That's a bridge idea.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be part of the bridge design.
do a
We could have a
go-to
conference room. and
It has to be.
What a
isn't it
great picture that would make,
public
two city councils
place?
squaring
Yeah,
off
because
on
we
the
could have
bridge.
the library board.
Yes, that would be
Okay.
great.
And
Not
then
just this line.
What happens if there were 3 of us,
That'd be over there.
we have to be at the library.
So that's our week full of fun.
Okay. Thank you. Take a few minutes and start the regular meeting. Trustees for June 25th, 2012, and Phyllis, if you call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Buckle,
Here.
Mayor Poonjam, Junior DeForest.
Here.
Trustees Joe Cirelli.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Manningham.
Here.
Lisa Skumas.
Here.
Deborah Williams. Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carter.
Here.
Town Clerk Paul Sargent.
Great. Any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to
Make a
approve the
motion
agenda.
to approve the agenda.
By Trustee Gregoris, second by Trustee Cirelli. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Do you want to start?
Sure. I'll
Okay.
start. Oh, did you want to, go ahead, we can start on yours.
Age before beauty.
Nice. And very true, too. So, we have a busy week coming up with meetings tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. We also have a meeting next Monday with our neighbors to the north with the Louisville City Council to discuss the 36 interchange. And given the latest feedback we received from them and their lack of funding, I almost see that meeting as being a moot point at this point. What I would suggest is that maybe we can have an executive session to discuss our options, and then come to a united decision, and then get back with them at that point. It's already scheduled to be, I think most of us were planning on being here Monday night, so I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, I see that meeting as a waste of time as of right now. And we do have options, and I think spending an hour together and exploring our options would be in our best interest and a good use of our time.
I was hoping that we would have received something back from Louisville that would have been creative or looking at other options, and we'd be able to discuss that in a forum with them. But if the option is that we can't afford anything, and we can't even afford half of anything, and we can't afford that till 2017, I'm not sure exactly what we talk about, I guess.
Do we let Matt write another letter back to them, just kind of holding their feet to the fire and see what their response again is?
I mean, I guess if they come back with something different, then we have that time available already. If it's, no, this is what kind of where we're at right now, it's that, thank you very much, probably isn't going to be productive use of time.
Don't we have to give a heads up that we're having an executive session, though? Don't we have to?
Yeah, 24 hours.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so we have a few days.
Yep.
Okay.
And wasn't the reason for the meeting, I thought it emanated from some of the design considerations we brought forth, and you suggested, Mayor, public input on those design considerations. So if I'm extrapolating where this conversation's going, if they're not going to pay their share, do they get to help determine design? Are we making any of those connections?
Well, what I'm understanding from their suggestion is that, they're not interested in getting into Phase 2, even though at the meeting it seemed very clear that their desire was that we need to make sure that we have this meetings rush, and
Right.
do it before July 4th so we can get it into the bid package.
Right.
And I think that everybody was trying to be cooperative and be able to participate, and so we were all on the same page, but this does not seem like they're any interest in trying to get into Phase 2, and so there's thus no rush, and thus I'm not sure exactly what we do at the meeting.
And now I understand why none of them bothered to show up for the meetings.
Well,
I
you wonder.
totally wasn't understanding why they were blowing him off.
And we do have options. I mean, we have some, I think our relationship with Louisville is important enough for us to take our time in an executive session and discuss the options. So,
I agree with Chris's suggestion that we see how the week plays out, and if in fact the communications Matt has suggests that meeting has no purpose, then we consider what you're suggesting.
And I'd be very happy to try to fit in an executive session this week. I won't be in next week. So if we could have it this week, I'd actually prefer it.
So
This week.
Perhaps I can recommend to the town manager that maybe get back to us by Thursday.
I will also be out next week.
So we're having, maybe we can do an executive session Thursday,
After Thursday's.
after the planning commission meeting?
I mean, I'll have
Something by
good
tomorrow.
information by tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So, okay.
Thursday.
And the other thing, yeah, I'm going to be out of town so after Monday night's meeting, if it happens, until the 15th.
Okay.
So I'll be back for our July 16th meeting.
Okay.
Enjoy your time.
Very good.
Sandy, do you want to, Trustee Pennington?
I just returned to town and have nothing to report.
Okay. Well, I'll take that tact and had a few meetings, but probably nothing of earth-shattering importance, so I'll pass. Trustee Skomets?
I had a coffee buzz and another one coming up on July 14th for those who are interested. We had I attended the comp plan meeting along with a number of other board members. Took a tour of the historic Mine Camp House, which has some new exhibits that were really interesting, and I encourage people to attend. And had an RCAC meeting, and thanks very much to Jay Wolforth and staff, and Alan Macbeth from staff as well, for providing some really good input on the toxics and fertilizer/pesticides issue. And RCAC will be coming forward with some comments to the board on the research on that and the recommendations. And then I asked Matt to prepare a little bit of information for town, because I figured if I was having questions, wondering what to do, maybe others would too, and I asked him to let us know where the nearest fire was to us and how we would hear about it. Would it be the alarm, reverse 911, or if something happened for us, how would we be expecting to hear about it?
Yeah. So the nearest, everybody knows there's a number of fires throughout the state, but the nearest one is about 57 miles, roughly, in our calculation from the town.
And what's the fastest a fire goes? I mean, moves.
I don't
Okay,
know
sorry,
that.
I didn't
Yeah.
ask that
It
question,
depends
sorry.
on wind conditions and stuff
course.
like that. So if the winds are really gusty, it's moving a lot quicker. So, but 57 miles is the closest, so that's some
Away.
distance away.
Is that in Estes Park? Is that the one?
That is the one near Fort Collins, the High Park fire, yeah. Estes Park might be, but it's 100% contained, so. And then notification would be through a number of avenues, could be the sirens, depending on the, immediacy of the threat, and directing people to go to their televisions, radios to get more information.
Is it reverse 911?
That would be another avenue that the Boulder County Sheriff's Office would use. But those would be your two primary. The ones
So we don't notify, the county notifies us?
with our contract with the Boulder County Sheriff's Office, they are our emergency management department for the town, and they coordinate any emergency services and responses, including notifications.
And so it's more immediate if it's 911, or it's more immediate if it's siren, or they're both equally immediate?
They're
or
both
what?
equally, the
Okay,
warning
so that's-
sirens get quicker information out to more people, and those that are outside. Reverse 911 is going to get people that are inside their homes by the phone, and so they would use both.
And what's our coverage for reverse 911? Do you know? Is everyone on it? Everyone in town?
Yeah, my understanding is they've gotten past some of the technical barriers that they had with some of the voice over IP, so they can and they have text alerts people can sign up for, and get text messages if there's an emergency.
Is that with the county?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
You can go to the Sheriff's Office website and sign up to get text message alerts. So they have a number of
So I'm
ways
just trying to get you
notify.
to give us
Yeah.
as complete a picture
Yeah.
for the audience as possible.
They have a ton of information on the sheriff's website, ways to sign up to be notified, as well as preparation kits that people can sign up for to receive, and
Advice about what to pack?
all that
sort of
stuff's
okay.
there. Yeah.
The reverse 911 it can be very specific, so if it could be a part of a subdivision. I had a friend of mine who lost his home, their cabin actually up in Red Feathers Lake, a Saturday night, and they had, been evacuated for a couple of weeks, and actually the reverse 911 also notified them that they had lost their home.
Yeah.
So it can be very specific, and it was this part of a subdivision, and pretty tough for them. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
So, just a couple additional questions. To bring that home then to our sites, Channel 8 and website, how quickly can we update those to at least say, for updated information, go to the Sheriff's Department website at
I mean,
X?
as soon, we can have it up within 5 minutes. If
Okay.
we have, but we need to make sure we have accurate information.
Right.
Because the last thing I want to do is for our staff to be putting up information on the website isn't accurate
Right.
information. So
Yeah.
there might be a little delay. We've had some incidences where for one example, there was a child who didn't come home within an hour. Reverse 911. I received some text messages, but the information wasn't completely. There was still some uncertainty in the information, so we didn't put anything up because I didn't want to create any panic. Yeah. So but as soon
the
as we have
intent is to
accurate
put it-
information, we can get it up quickly.
And that's our intent, is to
Uh-huh.
always put that on there?
You're a wise steward of information, so that's good.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt, I wanted to add a question on that, because I had a question during my comments on that. So our emergency response plan is in place, it's complete, and it's accessible on our website by anybody who wants to.
Our emergency plan is what the county has in place.
So we
Because
haven't made
that's
those
who-
modifications.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, sorry, I'll wait till you're done.
No, so there's not a, Sergeant Chamberlain, we've talked to him in length about the need for us to have our own emergency operations plan, and their recommendation is that we don't need to have our own separate, because we follow the county's emergency operations plan, and they put that in place and take care of coordination and response, including coordination with the fire department, schools, if we need buildings, all those things they have in place. So it's,
Boulder County's emergency preparedness plan is actually very comprehensive. I've studied it quite a bit, so it's, really, we're in good hands. It's one of those,
it's one of the advantages of having our contract with the Boulder County Sheriff's Office.
So even if it's just a town issue, as opposed to a county-wide issue, we still follow
Yeah.
that plan?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Justice Gomez, anything else?
I thought that someone came and gave us a presentation on emergency plans and said, this is a template, you need to fill in specific
Yeah,
things. And it sounded to me like we haven't done that yet.
No, we haven't.
And we might want-
And his comment at that meeting was, they have templates in place we can use if we want to, but in our discussions with them, I don't feel like we need a separate plan just for the town.
Thanks.
Because we're covered under the sheriff's office.
Thanks. That's it for me.
Thank you. Trustee Cirilli?
I was at that comp plan meeting, wished I'd seen a little bit more involvement at it, but particularly there were some interesting things, particularly on the transportation ideas that were presented that I hadn't seen before. Be interesting to follow up on. The only other thing, I will be out of town from the 1st to the 18th, so I will miss the meeting on the 15th.
I'll also be missing that meeting.
Okay.
is it the 15th or the 16th?
Whatever day that Monday is, I won't be
Okay.
getting back. That's actually, I'm coming back on Wednesday, the 18th, I think.
Yeah,
That's the 16th.
yeah,
It's Monday.
because we're coming back on the 15th to make that meeting on the 16th, so
All right.
You're paying more money.
we're driving, so it's...
Trustee Hanson?
Attended CML last week, Wednesday through Friday, and attended a few good presentations, but that's all I had to report.
Okay. Town manager?
Nothing in addition to what I went over previously, unless there's some specific question or you'd like me to.
I have just one question. So we have this letter on our desk about the
Yeah.
variance. or-
Yeah, the residents are here and
We'll speak to this
Yeah.
issue?
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. Town attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Town clerk?
Just to get back to those that are going to be gone for the July 9th meeting, if we'll only have 4 people left for that meeting on July 9th. So if anybody else is planning on missing, you need to let us know right away.
Oh, so it's July 9th, not the 16th.
Right, July 9th and the 23rd.
Our board meeting.
Is there something happening on the 16th, or
Yeah,
there's something on the 16th?
We might have a
You might not have quorum.
town center or comp plan meeting on the 16th, but the regular meetings are the 9th and the 23rd.
And I'll
So
just
you'll
go
be
for
on the
it.
9th?
Yes.
And I will be as well, and I will be as well.
Yeah, we have a town center meeting on the 16th.
Okay, that's the one, okay.
So, speaking of that, would you mind, since there's more people here and maybe somebody tuned in, so we have these town center PD process as well as the
yeah.
comprehensive plan process, would you mind
Yeah.
going over the dates?
So Tuesday, tomorrow night, Tuesday, we have a community meeting, open house on the town center plan development that we've been working on, the town and property owners, and it starts at 7 p.m. and it'll be held at the Superior Elementary School. And so we hope to encourage residents to come down and take a look at what the plan development is looking like for the town center and offer comments and questions. We'll be there to answer questions. So that's tomorrow at 7 at Superior Elementary. And then Wednesday, June 27th, we have a community meeting here in this room, the Town Hall Boardroom, on our interchange improvements that are being proposed for the US 36 McCaslin interchange. And specifically, we will be going over landscape and design concepts for the interchange. Design, railing, what type of railing, what does it look like, landscaping, what type of landscaping we'd like to see as part of, and monument signage for the interchange. That's starts at 6:30 on the 27th, which is Wednesday here in the Town Hall Boardroom. And then Thursday, the 28th of June, we have a joint meeting between the Town Board and the Planning Commission, which starts at 6 p.m. in this room, Town Hall Boardroom, on the comprehensive plan update.
Great. Thank you very much. And maybe we could send out another email. I think we've done this already, but maybe another email notification.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, thanks. That brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
Yes, that would be you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this
Name and
evening.
just general residence.
My name is Kendra Kilbride, and I am actually the niece of a resident of Superior,
Okay.
Pat Kilbride. And my parents are here in town visiting, and this is in regards to the letter that you all have in front of you. Our request for an application for a temporary use permit to allow my parents to continue to reside in their fifth wheel trailer, which is currently parked on my uncle's land. It is currently 100% contained within their land, and we would like to be able to allow them to continue to sleep in it. My uncle's house does not really provide any facilities. They don't have extra rooms or beds where my parents could sleep, and it seems silly if they've got their fifth wheel outside that they couldn't sleep in it. So we'd like to ask for your permission to allow them to continue to reside in their trailer with a temporary use permit.
Okay.
Right. I'm not sure if this is relevant to the legal aspects of the case, but there have been a series of medical conditions for which my family has been having some issues lately. My uncle got very sick in March, and my parents came back to actually help take care of him after he got back out of the hospital. Subsequent to that, he is feeling much better, which is great. And now my father, we'd been in talks with the lovely town manager and his assistant for about a month now, trying to get this process taken care of and figure out a way to allow them to continue to reside on the property. And during that process, we were under the impression that it was it was going to work out, and so my father went ahead and got some surgery done on his foot. And now we have had a complaint lodged against us, and we would like to try and work with you all to find a solution so that my parents could stay in their own home. Unfortunately, I don't have a place for them to stay. My sister doesn't have a place for them to stay. Their best bet really is to reside at my uncle's property. So, based on them trying to take care of each other while they're going through various medical things, and just being able to reside with family while they're in town, we'd like to ask your help and your assistance in this matter to grant us a temporary use permit to continue to utilize my uncle's property.
One question, if I could, and then a question for town staff. So the one question for you is, how long are you anticipating that this would last for?
We'd like to do a 60-day.
60-day,
permit.
okay. And the
So,
town manager or town attorney?
from a procedure aspect, this would need to, the temporary use permit would be an option for them to pursue. We already received a complaint, so a public hearing would need to be scheduled for the planning commission, and the planning commission would need to review and vote on it per the code.
And their next meeting would be when?
July 3rd? Is there next week?
Next week.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
We want us to...
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know about notice, Phyllis. We wouldn't have time.
So
So
when would the next one
we
be?
have to, what's the
7 days from this?
2 weeks from that.
17th.
17th? Yeah.
And what is then the requirement of the town in between now and the 17th?
Well, the ordinance does not allow overnight camping. So they would not be allowed to be in the RV overnight.
And I would request your indulgence in understanding the hardship that would pose to a post-surgery patient. And my mom, who is unfortunately afflicted with multiple sclerosis, and not being able to stay in their own house, having to sleep on a couch for more than 2 weeks would be a hardship for them.
Now I'll ask the town attorney.
I hate to be the bad person here, but there's no way we can waive the code requirement. So, until we get through the procedure that is with us.
Can I point out a technicality in the law? The complainant, so the law states that the property owners within 500 feet of the property are allowed to lodge complaints. The complainant lives more than 500 feet away from the property. We did some research and looked it up last night, or earlier today.
Do we need a complaint or just knowledge?
There are two different procedures. It's the manager can review it unless a complaint is filed, and that's when it goes to the planning commission. That is something we would have to look at. If the first step is for an application to be filed, then we would look at the complaint and see if it is within 500 feet. If it's not within 500 feet, then the town manager can hear this, apply the criteria, and act on it without any hearing. If the complainant is within 500 feet, it does need to go to the planning commission at a noticed public hearing.
According to Google Earth and some measurements taken from the edge of her property line to the edge of ours, it is 515 feet.
Yeah, we would have to go out and
Have to
actually.
go out with them.
That's fine.
Okay, so what I would recommend is that the potential applicant and town staff get together and see whether or not those things are true, and if they are, then we will follow our law without starting to waive things without going through the process becomes, and I get where you're coming from, becomes very problematic from a town municipal operation standpoint, so.
We understand. I hate to see my parents be homeless for a couple of weeks.
All right, so.
What would be the next logical step for us to do?
Have a phone call tomorrow with, we'll file an application and probably then have a additional conversation.
May I give this to you now?
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sorry for your difficulties.
Please let us know as soon as you can, obviously. I know that this is a very minor issue for you guys, but for us, it's important.
It's not a minor issue, actually.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items?
Hello, my name is Brooks Lustig. I'm the head coach for the Rock Creek Flyers swim team. We most of the time practice at the Rock Creek North Pool Recreation Center. I'm here today. I've been asked to come here for my team to share with you guys what it is that we do on the Flyers and why we enjoy the use of your facility so much. My goal here tonight is to let you know what we do and let you know how important this team has been to many of the town of Superior residents' lives, and to try and build a good working relationship with you in the future as the town grows and the team grows with it. I'd like to start with just a couple stories about some of the swimmers we've had. One of our swimmers, a resident of yours, Abby Hauk, swam for the Flyers starting when she was 5 or 6 years old. She swam for the Flyers for many years, and although our team didn't provide the coaching that she would need to go swim at the Olympic trials this weekend in Omaha, she did get her start and her love for swimming at our team, and as a result has gone on to local high schools, competed very strongly for them, and then moved on and maybe someday, with a little bit of luck, will compete for our country in the Olympic Games. That is one extreme example of the many, many swimmers that we see. I'd like to talk about a story of a swimmer on the other end. This swimmer has swam for us for the last several years. Her name is Rhiannon Kemp, and she is also a resident of the town here. And she has come, done the swimmers, and she's not a swimmer who's going to go to the Olympics. She's not even a swimmer that consistently places first in the league, but she has a very, very strong love for swimming, and it started to impact her life. She's gone on to college now, and she's back helping this year, helping me coach the young preteen kids that are 4, 5, and 6 years old, as well as working with the Town of Superior lifeguard and swim teaching program and teaching lessons there. Through our program, we've many, many kids have come through our team. This year we have over 200 swimmers. More than 86% of them live right here in the neighborhood and in the town of Superior. And the other few that do, I assure you, are very close family friends, both with the parents and the kids of this team. And, I have parents say to me all the time, my kid loves swim team. They wake up every morning at 6 a.m. on their own. They get on their bike or arrange the carpool with their friends just to get to the pool so Coach Brooks isn't giving them a hard time when they get in the water 5 minutes late. It's a huge team, and the kids just love it. The facility is one of the best that we have in our league, and we try to work with the residents of the town and the management of the pool as much as possible. One of the things that makes my life really easy is that many of our former swimmers go on and they end up working for the town of Superior through the lifeguard program. But besides that, we always strive to work very hard when we do have our big swim meets and we do have a very large number of people using the facility. We work very hard to make sure the facility is perfectly clean when we're done. Make sure we try and give as advance notice as possible, and really try and be great hosts to the rest of the league and the rest of the communities that come here and see this community. We do have reputations for having the best bake sale in the whole league. We have reputations for running the fastest, cleanest, and most fun meet in the whole league. And I will say that this is that is all done. That is not done by me. That is all done by a very, very large volunteer organizations of parents that give their precious, precious little amount of time to help us go. I see that. I think this means my time's running out. I'm sorry, I haven't spoken at one of these before. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that we have a huge impact on hundreds of members of this community, and we have plans to grow in the future, as I'm sure you guys do too. And basically, I wanted to introduce myself as Brooks Lustig, and more, I wanted to introduce the Rock Creek Flyers to you guys, and say we're a huge fan of the town, and really my goal is moving forward to working with Patrick and Brian and you all, that we can have a very positive relationship and really have an impact in a significant number of kids' lives.
So, Coach, as a former swimmer, this is very dear to my heart. Is there anything that the town can do for you in return?
The biggest thing that we need as we grow, quite honestly, is more pool time. And I think there's lots of creative ways that we can get together with the town staff and figure out how to make this happen. Quite honestly, I start to lose kids as they get to be 11, 12, 13 years old, and start to have to, they can't come to practice at 10 a.m. anymore. They can't come to practice at 9 a.m. They set their own alarm, and they wake up at 5:30 to get here. That would be my number one request to the town as we move forward with this whole thing. Any way we can be creative and access more pool time at times when teenagers are physically active, I think would be very valuable for our team and for our kids.
So about 11 o'clock at night is what you're recommending?
We'll bring the demon, right?
So I think you said that you are a huge fan of the town. I think I can speak for the town board that we're a huge fan of the Flyers, and once again, you impact hundreds of swimmers and families throughout the community. So we're very appreciative of all your efforts.
Thank you.
Great, and just to point out, there's a very large group of parents that are taking there Monday night, as I'm sure you guys are all also.
It's all reruns anyways.
No, it's not. It's swimming trials.
So let's see. So who's here representing the Flyers? Okay, great. And I assume that you all agree with Brooks' comments. So
I just wanted to add one thing. If can you hear me okay?
you have to be at the mic, though. Sorry.
Thank you for your consideration and your time.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Tom DeFranco, and my wife and I have been here since 1994. So we have 3 daughters. 2 of them have been in the Flyers since they were little kids. Minimal interest in swimming. I think the only time they went to the pool was to go on the slide and splash around. And we got them engaged in the program. They learned all of their strokes from the Flyers. And I think the thing that impresses me the most is watching them get up and schlep over there every morning. The oldest one, at 6 a.m. she gets up and she goes down there and does her laps. The other one gets up at 7 to go over there at 7:30. And it's so nice to watch them get up early in the summer and go do something. And I keep telling them this is a lifetime lesson, right? They're going to take this through high school and college and adulthood. No need to get off their butts and do something. It's just such a great thing for the kids, and I love it. And all their friends are there, and I go all the time. And one of the comments Brooks made was about our volunteering. It's like the military. Everyone has a job. Everyone does it, and you dare not show up. And the meets are just flawlessly run, as you guys know. And they take the responsibility so seriously. They have everything picked up and put back exactly the way it was. Last Friday night, we have to be there for setup for the meet, which we had last Saturday morning. And we did not do anything until 8 o'clock when the pool closed and the kids got out. Then we got in and started doing our work. So they really do follow the rules. It's just a great thing. I'm so proud to be a part of it. So,
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. And just related to this, I think this is a great model that we've worked out with the Flyers, but actually through most of our athletic organizations. We provide the facilities, and then volunteer and other organizations use those to do the program. So with baseball, Mustang football, rugby, lacrosse. So I think it's a great model. I'm sure that we'll continue with that in the future. So thank you very much for coming down. Appreciate it. Okay. Any other comments? And any additional public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items? Okay. Seeing none. And please feel free to attend the meeting. We'd love everybody to stay, but if you need to go someplace else, we could take a 30-second break if you want to. That brings to item number 6, presentations. We don't have any this evening. That brings to item number 7, presentation, consent agenda. And on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the June 11, 2012 Board of Trustees meetings, acceptance of the minutes of the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting, approval of an alcohol permit for possession and consumption on public property, and adoption of a resolution approving the Second Amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County to participate in the Home Consortium Program. With that, I'll entertain a motion by Trustee Skumas to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Trustee Gregorus? Let's see. Don't think we're well, I guess we're sort of spending money on the home loans potentially. So, Phyllis?
Cirilli?
Yes.
Gregorus?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Anything?
Yes.
Skumas?
Yes, except I wasn't at the June 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So that brings to item number 8, public hearing and adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Urban Farmer, Inc. for the Town 9 Park Enhancement Project. With that, I'll open the public hearing. And Town Clerk, do you have proof of publication?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Megley?
Thank you, Mayor. Martin Toth, our Parks and Public Works Director, along with Jim Payne, who's the chair for ProStack, have a presentation to give to the board on this project, but I wanted to just acknowledge the amount of work that Martin specifically and his staff, as well as the ProStack committee, has done on this project. I mean, it's with the community meetings and input and design, and we're talking over 2 years just to get to this point. So excited to see this project move forward, and I want to thank them for their work, which has been tremendous. So, Martin.
Good evening, Martin Toth, town staff. Thank you to Mr. Magley for recognizing the effort of everybody on the team. The consultant team with design concepts has been great, and several of the members of ProStack over the last 3 years have spent considerable amount of time, as you've all heard over the last couple of presentations. I understand that this is an item that you've had over the last couple of months several times, and I appreciate you taking the time to go through what's been a very deliberate process to get to the ultimate recommendation and then the design. Just to recap, for anybody who hasn't seen any of the meetings on this or had a chance to catch up with any of us on the details, Town 9 Park and the Park Enhancement Project that's being considered for a construction contract tonight by the town board is a park facility just west of this building. It's a few blocks west of here, between Cold Creek Drive and Marshall, or Sycamore, just south of the Super Target. It's a little more than 8 acres of area that was dedicated to the town originally when the Marketplace development was approved in the late 90s. Right now, the park that's there is a neighborhood park facility. If you think of the elements that are there that are currently included as part of the site plan, it has a multi-purpose athletic field on the west end, a traditional play structure in the center. A prefabricated restroom was added about 3 years ago, and there's a minimally landscaped grass area on the eastern side. And most of the folks who are in attendance tonight understand this has been the subject of various levels of discussion for several years about how to make this park a final, completed, and entirely finished park. So that was the goal of the process that was started over the past year. Parks, Recreation, Open Space Trails Advisory Committee, what we refer to as ProStack, has taken on a lead role and over the last couple of years looked at this project as a priority, and it's included as part of the budget recommendation that the town board has seen each of the last 2 years to include first design, identifying the budget for design work and the development of the master plan over the last year, and then this year to work on actual design, the construction documents and the design development that happened over the last 3 and a half, 4 months. So the result of all this work has been that the construction documents were finished after ProStack was able to help work with staff and host community engagement processes to include what we think is the best solution to have a practically finished park, and to do so within a rational budget amount, and also to have something that serves the larger interests of the community, both the Sagamore neighborhood and the original town neighborhoods, are the primary areas served by this park facility. And this finished design really gets us to them. So we put together a presentation. The project, as I mentioned, was budgeted this year for construction. There's an element in your packet that includes the site plan and several other PowerPoint slides that show the different elements, the different alternative items that were considered as part of the overall project, but would be in addition to the base bid amount. So all of the individual items that you'll see that aren't part of this overall master plan, those are individual alternate items that were considered, that were specifically broken out as part of the construction contract bid submittal. There were 3 that were included in your PowerPoint that you received in your meeting materials. There was one, there was an item in which staff didn't do a very good job conveying as a change. If I can highlight it here on the site plan right here, if you think of the site orientation, this is the west side. So Super Target is over here where the icon is. This is the current multi-purpose field. Here's where the restroom facility that's located there now is. So the big picture change that this group has seen over the last several meetings was the installation of a teen area, a teen feature that included some skate features and ping pong table and some seating areas for teenage folks to hang out. So where the hand is on top of the teen area is the area that I'm referring to. This group, when we had discussed during the work session of May 14th, I believe, staff had mistakenly interpreted the direction to move the climbing feature, the boulder that you had seen in a previous iteration. We'll go over it in a little bit more detail later. Staff had interpreted the discussion at the time to include moving the synthetic boulder, it's a climbing feature, to the play pit that's there now. If you think of the Poston platform composite feature that's there now, it's been there for several years. It was there at Children's Park before then. It's a little bit older, but it's there and it serves some folks in town who think it's an appropriate play feature for what they're looking for. We had taken we had made the leap to think that the boulder should go there, and then based on some board discussion at the time, be replaced in the teen area with some additional seating. So at the end of the day, instead of having the boulder here, it was moved up here to the play pit in the center. So if, as we go through the alternatives, we'll talk about some of the details, but I wanted to highlight that now as a material change from one of the alternatives. The net price difference is about $4,000.
Martin, do we want to discuss that now? That change? Because I think that's significant.
Martin, are you suggesting we do that change, or are you suggesting we do?
I present it to you as an alternative.
Oh, because...
In addition to the 3 alternatives that we discussed.
I guess I'm a little confused, because one was a teen feature, and now that's been moved to the children's area?
The climbing boulder is a feature that's going to be attractive to all ages, young and old. It was originally shown in the teen area.
Why don't we get through most of the presentation then, and then
Okay.
questions then, if that's okay.
After the work session last month, staff worked with the folks at Design Concepts to put together construction documents. Those documents were ultimately posted on the town's website and posted on the town's online procurement service. And we received almost half a dozen complete and thorough bids. The successful bidder was identified. Urban Farmer was the successful low bidder, and Sean Lyman from their staff is here tonight. The contract that's being considered for tonight is the construction contract with Urban Farmer to complete this work, and we'd like to go over some of the alternate items with you to share a little bit about what the different options were. There were 8. It was a little bit confusing to have a base bid package that had 8 potential add items that could be mixed and matched within all of them. So it was a volume of work to get through to produce, and it was also a volume of work for the ProStack members to get through all the details, and we overlooked one. So before we get into some of the details of each of the alternate items, the chairman of ProStack, Jim Payne, is here, and he can go over one more time with the group the amount of public process and community engagement that happened over this general timeline. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening. Jim Payne, ProStack Chair. I'm just going to touch on this briefly because I know I've been through this many times with you, but since this is a public hearing, I just want it into the record. The point is, and I'll just summarize it, that this was an extensive public process where we spent a lot of time, and it was made a little bit easier by the fact that this was predetermined to be a neighborhood park rather than a community park, so that enabled us to focus on a very specific area of town that was reachable through mail and through actual canvassing, which Trustee Hansen and members of ProStack did to get out to people in their homes. So you can see that there are over 14 items, and that doesn't even include all of the individual ProStack meetings that were not, announced decision-making meetings. So extensive process, and the basic assumptions throughout this process were that it was a neighborhood park, not a community park, and that was established in the initial board direction, that it would remain non-programmed, which had been the operating assumption for the existing facilities at Town 9, and remains the assumption, so these would not be programmed activities and facilities at the park, reflecting its neighborhood nature. That the more active part was to be, or amenities were to be directed to the west, and more passive to the east of the park, and that there would be some youth baseball amenity or feature in the park. So those are our basic assumptions, and I just want to stress that the public process, and we feel when we get into the recommendations that we can say that everything that we've recommended has come from a fairly robust public process, in addition to numerous hearing before the Planning Commission, and of course numerous exercises with this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Montour Town staff. So to continue through the items that were in your meeting materials, we had the copy of the bid tabulation. So this is the totals that were submitted by each of the firms that submitted for this project. You can see the base bid amount and then each of the 8 alternate items. So what we like to go through with the group, if you'd like, is to highlight some of the different alt items and what their prices were. And then Shannon Weber, Principal with Design Concepts, is here tonight, and she can answer any of the detailed questions about the individual elements, if you'd like. Again, Urban Farmer was the low bid here, both from the base bid perspective and also for each of the additional alternate items. The base bid amount, if the board were to so choose to do just that, the entire project cost is captured here with the $604,000 base bid amount plus the amount that's been committed to and encumbered for design and project management with Design Concepts. So a net project total of nearly $650,000. The second alternative that this group saw was the recommendation from ProStack, which included 4 of the 8 alternatives. So I'll highlight back to those. The alternates that ProStack was interested in were numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the enhanced, completed kite trail path through the eastern portion, the boulder, which I referred to earlier, the climbing feature, an additional shelter next to the basketball court, and dugouts for the baseball, the enhanced baseball feature that would include a broader backstop with some artistic renderings as part of the wing pieces. So that includes the ProStack recommendation with their alts in this comparison to the rest. And then if the board were so interested to consider doing all the alternate items, we wanted to include those here as a total and then break them out individually. So if the base bid with all the alternates were to be considered, the net total with the construction contract plus the design and project management would be $768,000. Any questions on that before I move on to the alternates? Just a quick budget item. I didn't touch on the budget before. As part of the 2012 budget, there is appropriated $700,000 total to go toward the completion of this project. If you'll recall, during winter and spring, staff submitted for a Great Outdoors Colorado grant that was ultimately not awarded. So there was a $150,000 grant award that was not received by the town to help offset some of the costs for this project. Included in your meeting materials are some potential alternatives to think about covering that difference. It includes using general fund reserve, general fund capital reserve, and then also potentially eliminating a few items that had been budgeted in general fund capital. That was the purpose for the 3 alternates, and then some of the detail that were in your meeting materials. The individual alternates. The poured-in-place surfacing was alternate number 1. The value you'll see on the lower right part of the screen is $27,000. It's the meshy rubbery material that would replace the engineered wood fiber, the small pieces of what looks like bark that is used as playground media would be replaced by something that would be permanent and poured in place, literally, and would not blow away in the wind in the extensive winds that we have here in town. This would be poured in place in that central area, where the play structure is now. If it were to be replaced, it would be replaced with this instead of the engineered wood fiber that's there now.
Martin, if I can ask, so when we look at the master plan, is the rest the wood chip fiber?
Yes. So, if I understand.
If you would indicate on there where poured in place would go.
Sure. So recapping your question, Trustee Pennington, so the play pit that's there now, the area that has the structure, is at the highest point, and it's on the windward side of the park. So if there was a spot that made sense to replace with the poured-in-place material rather than what looks like the wood chips, that would be the most sensible place to ensure that what happens now happens less, which is the wood fiber ends up blowing to the east and across the eastern portion of the park. The other 2 play areas, Shannon calls them play pits, I'm calling them play pits. So the second here and a third here. So what's there now with the hard surface material and the restroom, no change, just a change in the material that would be underneath that equipment.
Just a what?
Just a change in the material that's right there in the play pit, and that would be the poured in place.
And so is your budget cost, is that net after extrapolating yearly refreshing or semi-yearly refreshing of the wood? If it were wood chips or the baking wood chips, it would have to be refreshed, it would have to be maintained, it would have to be added to and augmented year after year. So is the 27, what's the delta is what I'm wondering.
The 27 is the first year expense to install it.
Okay.
Every year, several $100s is spent. Most of the playgrounds, definitely the playgrounds that have the engineered wood fiber that are most exposed to the wind. So yes, there would be some replacement costs, but it would be in the hundreds, not the thousands. I think the net gain would be time, number 1, and then inconvenience for people who use the park on the east end who now sit on, walk on the pieces of the engineered wood fiber.
Hey, Martin, are we able to leave, if we decide to keep the current play set in place, are we able to do this poured in place with that there, or do we have to remove it?
I think, Trustee Hanson, my off-the-top answer would be, yeah, you could remove the material, you could take the play structure out, remove it temporarily, put the poured in place, and then have anchors to replace the equipment on. So yes, the answer is yes. It'd be probably a similar price, but that would be something I'd have to figure out.
Okay.
Second alternate item, the parkour stations, the fitness core stations. An item that had received a considerable amount of discussion throughout the community engagement process was including some exercise equipment. And traditionally, if you think back to some of the parks that have been built over the recent decades, there are small exercise areas that are around a larger course. The idea of having them cluster here is to make them a little bit more social. And I think, as you've seen in the master plan discussion in the past, that it received a lot of positive response. The idea of being able to play or see folks or be associated with the folks who are using either the play equipment, the boulder, if there were a boulder there, some of the other elements in the play areas, and then also to be able to socialize a little bit and to do some of the exercises. So the second alternate is the fitness station that's valued at about $11,000. The third alternate, the continuation of the kite trail. If you'll think back to the presentations from before, the interurban service that used to serve this portion of Boulder County followed what approximately shaped a kite as it moved through Denver up to Boulder and then back through Rock Springs. So in order to extend what was in the base bid, which would be basically the top half of the kite trail, to extend it down from the southern to the south, to the west, and then back up to the north, would be approximately $4,000 more. So alternate 3. Next, the boulder itself, approximately $32,000. And as I mentioned before, it had been located in that central play pit, replacing what was there with some smaller boulders around it, and then an entry feature to make it ADA accessible. Fifth alternate, an additional 12 by 12 picnic shelter just to the east of the play areas adjacent to the basketball court. The design contemplates the construction of a 12 by 12 shelter, similar to what was installed at the dog park. If you've been there recently, it's about the same size. Sixth alternate, an item that had received considerable discussion throughout this process, the baseball field, and then the addition of dugouts and what it would look like and what it would cost. So by shifting the baseball field slightly to the east and then adding a dugout facility or a fenced dugout area on each side of first and third base, the additional cost is another $5,400. Seventh alternate item, an item that came up later in the community engagement process, was the addition of the bocce court on the eastern side of the park. It had been contemplated throughout this process to have that be a more passive area where there isn't a lot of the practice play or some of the baseball or soccer or potentially ultimate frisbee that's on the multi-purpose field to the west, have some more passive activities on the west. So included in this is a horseshoe pit as part of the base bid, and then the addition of a bocce court is highlighted in yellow there. The cost to do that, the excavation and the installation of drainage there, and then the court itself, approximately $13,000. The eighth alternate item was some additional artwork to offset and highlight the trek that folks would make coming from along the kite trail and the different types of lifestyles that you could see over that approximately 30 miles between here and Denver, between Boulder and Denver, stretching from the farm activities and the ranch activities served throughout through the 1940s by train service. So the eighth alternate is the middle artwork at $13,000. Those were the 8 alternate items. And if there are any questions or if there are any configurations or any details that we can highlight about any of those, we'd be glad to do so.
So it's, just so it's clear, so it's ProStack's recommendation, or is it thought it would work better for the boulder to move to the central location, or I just want to make sure I understand the thinking behind it?
Thank you. What happened was that and we just, I thank God, let me just mention before we've got here from ProStack today, we've got Aaron Atwell, who's the vice chair, and Sandy Hammerly, Brent Bickle, and Darrell McCool. And Darrell was the one who caught this sort of at the last minute today. Staff had, I think, taken it as direction from the board to move it, and we need to clarify that. If that was indeed the direction of the board, then we need to discuss that. But in any event, when they came back with the final designs, the actual engineered designs, it had been moved, and we did not catch it, and it was not really discussed. So that means that our recommendation really did not, which was a unanimous recommendation to adopt the plan in our particular proposal, did not reflect moving the boulder. So if it is moved, then many of the members, if it is, we need to go back and discuss it and really look at it more carefully. But what we're proposing is if that was not the direction of the board, we'd recommend going back to where it was originally, and Martin and his staff have done some calculations and looked at that, because it does change some of the cost and landscaping assumptions.
Can you point out to us again where, Martin, can you put up...
And along those lines, if the boulder goes to the central core area, what happens, is there any change with the playground equipment?
No, this is where, originally, if you see where my laser is, we had the boulder, this is the teen area with the skate ramp and the concrete ping pong table, and the boulder was to be placed there. And there was some concern about the desirability of having the boulder at the end of the ramp. And that led to the discussion out of which there was a assumption that the direction was to move it. But that's how that happened. So it would be moved up here, if it were moved, into the center, and the play equipment would then come out. So that is what is in your packet, is that the boulder, if it were approved, would be here, and the play equipment would come out.
And
if that is not what ProStack approved, then it was just a missignal here, I think, between us.
And where would the play equipment then go?
All the other play equipment is in these, right where it's always been. This would not displace any of the new play equipment. This existing structure, play structure, would come out and be just given away or moved somewhere else. We hadn't gotten that far. And it is an aged piece of equipment. I mean, there's some reasons why it would be desirable to move that, but our assumption is that it would stay there for now. The boulder would be down here, and at some point in the future, it would be replaced, just as at some point in the future, any piece of play equipment in town will be replaced when it outlives its lifespan. Did I say all that correctly? I mean, that's growth, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So,
Trustee Cirilli?
just to simplify, the ProStack recommendation as given to us tonight with the 4 items would then include approximately $4,000 extra for this change. Okay.
Correct. Net. There's some pluses and minuses, so net, that would be the net difference.
Okay.
I think, well, we also think that we've got with Design Concepts help, we've got a very, the boulder fixture that we're talking about is very nice, and we're all excited about it, and it's a very cost-effective way to get a very, very impressive amenity. And I think part of the thinking when it was moved was that since it is such a nice feature, that there was some argument that says, hey, let's put it up here as a signature piece at the peak of the apex, if you will, of the landscape. So there is that argument, but that was not what ProStack approved.
Trustee Pennington?
I understand that, but, I followed this process quite closely over a year and a half, and my compliments to the multi-generational aspects of it and the fact that you are trying to engage teenagers in this, because the alternative, having 3 cents who survive teenagerhood, is they're at the mall or they're getting into trouble. So to be otherwise occupied productively is a real positive, and has been for me. If you move the boulder to the kid area, you do not want the teens to go into the kid area. I mean, that's, to me, going to be trouble to have. Yes, kids may migrate to the teen area to get on it, but to me, that's a little more manageable than having teens converge with the little children in the core heart that is intended for the children. So, also, you deprive the teen area of a major attraction, in my opinion, to try to pull kids off the couch or out of the mall into a park. So I'm a strong advocate of keeping it as it was originally designated by ProStack.
Okay, other board questions? Trustee Gagos?
I hear what you're saying very clearly. But I had the same thought as you did, Jim, that it's such an imposing piece of equipment, and putting it at the very center of Town 9 Park would give it, I don't know, there's something attractive about that, rather than having it sidelined in the teen area. So, although I understand what you're saying, I still see that it's value being right there in the middle.
Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, I would disagree with you, Ely, on that. I think the original plan was to keep the teen area all together. And if you do move it and take out that play set, I mean, you're reducing the amount of play area for kids. And that's something that we wanted to keep in place in the central area so that moms could go on the workout area and they could see their kids down in the other play area. So I think it makes a lot of sense to leave it like we originally planned. And I hope we wouldn't move it.
And the concern about kids crashing into it, the teenagers, are there?
That was, well, I think one trustee had an issue with that, but I think that could easily be modified, and I honestly don't think that was ever a problem, because you're not going to have skateboarders flying down that sidewalk and then running in. I mean, they're going to go up on the rail there, and so they're not going to be gaining a lot of speed once they're off the rail. I don't see that as an issue at all. The big issue was the ping pong table and them falling over the edge potentially, because it was only 4 or 5 feet from the edge. But I think that boulder could be either repositioned or it's not even an issue at all. So I would hate to see us take away some of the play structures that the kids currently enjoy. I think there's still more useful life on that, and if in 3 years we find that it has to be replaced, well, we can do something a little more modern in a few years. But I wouldn't want to see us take that away.
Okay. Trustee Skumatz?
And I wanted to keep the critical mass for the maximum number of things for the teens as well. So I prefer not seeing it move.
So I just had a question. So bocce court, $13,000. I don't know much about it, but I thought it was sort of like dirt on a ground and you roll
Stakes or something.
Italians here, I guess, but
that's an item that it came up at the very end. So with everything else on the list, I can say really came through a robust public process, withstood lots of scrutiny and lots of different eyes looking at it, public and board and everyone else. That one came up at the very end. It was a good suggestion. We picked it up because we thought, and it came up from one person, a few people said, yeah, that'd be nice. We thought it would be inexpensive, and then we found out it isn't. So the reason why we've not included it in ProStack's recommendation is that that's one thing I can't look you in the eye and say, this came through a rigorous public process. We could always, some future year, we could add it. We also don't know how widespread. I mean, Louisville has a tradition that supports it. It's well used. We know that. We don't know exactly how well used it would be here. So we would not. The ProStack has recommended that that's one we could dispense with.
And how come it's so expensive?
Because they have to. Because of the grading and the drainage, otherwise you just end up with a pit full of water when it rains, or the irrigation. So you've got to provide for all of that drainage, and there is some structure to it. Otherwise, it just becomes a mess. Did I say that correctly?
And did you have, my impression is that you didn't have a huge public outpouring for bocce ball?
No.
Okay.
It came up at the very end as something that would fit with when we were describing that eastern end. We had horseshoes, which are still there, and someone said, that would be a great place for a bocce court, and we all thought it was a great idea, but we thought it would be much less expensive than it is.
That could be a good project for a Eagle Scout in the
Well,
future.
I was going to say that there might be a few things in here that I wonder if they're
Yeah, we can-
a youth corps
Exactly.
or Eagle Scout might be able to do some
Well,
shaving of costs, perhaps.
there are those items. I mean, the completion of the kite trail is one of those things. I mean, that's something that, next year could be fit into a Youth Corps project or an Eagle Scout project, as we often do with those soft trails. But we thought it was important to define that eastern end of the park, and we want it to be complete, and we felt that that's what's called for in the design, and we should go ahead and do that now. But there are items like that, as you know, they will come into play as we actually get into construction at some point.
Okay. Questions from the board, Trustee Pennington?
The shelter, Jim, by the basketball court, at some point that was benches, a recommendation, just some benches for people to watch the pickup games there, and it's morphed into a shelter. Tell
I
us
wouldn't
about
say
that.
more. There's always been a shelter
Right there?
there in different degrees. It's in here as an alternative item, which is what we're discussing, but it has always been there. I mean,
Is this the only shelter in the park?
no, well, there's the main
There's the
pavilion.
main
Yeah,
one.
the pavilion.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
the only shading structure, but in time and even fairly soon, because you see what Parks and Rec staff has done and Alan's people have done at the dog park, where they've put in trees, they've put in even some trees that will further develop and provided shade. Eventually, as the trees come in and so forth, we'll have more shading. But shade is the number one. There are few things that come up more in the public meetings than shade, particularly in reference to this particular location. Someone has pointed out that the outdoor basketball court, which is very popular off of Indiana, near Indiana and Colton, does not have any shade structures. But that does have a very nice, well-developed grassy bank with tall fir trees, and there are a lot of benches where you can sit under the trees. It's really quite pleasant, so you really don't need that there. But the concern is that in this location, it would be a very big plus to have.
Okay. Any public comment regarding, is that okay?
Sure.
Oh, that's it. Public comment regarding this?
Any of the ProStack members that need to add, now's a good time.
Going once, going twice. Then I think the questions for the board. I think maybe it makes the most sense, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we have all potential 8 ads, and there's a subset of that that's ProStack's recommending, and maybe that's where people are. But maybe we should just walk through them and see where people are with all of them
think that's a good
individually.
idea.
Does that sound fair? Trustee
I
Skumats?
just have, the one question I have, it wasn't the question I raised my hand for quite, but
No, I'm sorry.
it'd be very interesting to know which of these have higher annual operating costs or maintenance costs or something like that than others. So if there are some that are going to be, not just fixed costs, but also some kind of significant operating costs, I'd like to know that as well.
Martin Toast, Town staff, thank you. As I glance through the list of the alternate items, I think the items that would require the most substantial maintenance would be the items that, probably the bocce court, because of the maintenance for the materials. And the kite trail is also made out of pressure pipe. Basically, any material that's going to be removable is going to need to go back and be replaced on an annual basis, as Trustee Pennington mentioned earlier, in talking about the engineered wood fiber. The fitness equipment and the pour in place, so items 1 and 2 are fixed installations that are basically going to be obsolete when they fall apart. They're not going to require a lot of maintenance. The path is going to require some annual maintenance and replacement for loose material. The climbing boulder is a fixed installation. 12 by 12 shelter is a pavilion. If it's defaced or if it's the victim of graffiti, then it'll need to be cleaned. If there are birds' nests, obviously there will be some cleanup associated with it. But if it's not reserved, it's not going to have an ongoing maintenance associated with it. It's just dedicated to that because it was installed there. The dugouts, number 6, are a fixed installation. It's additional fence, some some crusher fine surface would be there. It would need some maintenance just to replace it if it were to be washed out. Bocce court, I mentioned, as having some surface material in it that would probably be the higher end of the annual maintenance. And then the metal artwork. It's just metal artwork. As long as it's there, it's fine.
And what's the maintenance associated with the base?
The overall maintenance for this...
The base bid?
The base bid package, if I remember correctly, was about $31,000.
Annual?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Remember that includes landscape maintenance and irrigation, water, and tree, plant, and shrub replacement on an ongoing basis. So it would require some annual maintenance to maintain the landscaping, just like it would in any other facility or right-of-way or park area.
Which is
Is
a third of that.
Is that above where our current is, or is that close, a slight increase of what our current is? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I understand. So it's been a few months since we looked at some of the operating detail. So yeah, it would be a net add. It would be considerably addition to the amount of trees, plants, and shrub material that's there, and then require some irrigation enhancements and some ongoing irrigation. So controlling over the course of the year for weather like we're having right now, there's going to be some increased irrigation consumption. So that is a good order of magnitude estimate, conservatively, from our perspective, on the incremental increase in maintenance.
Thanks.
Trustee Gregorius?
As we go through each item, can we put it up on the...
Yeah.
So that people can see it and we can discuss. Okay, thank you.
So that begins with the base bid and design. Let's see, I think people are interested in pursuing with this, so I think
Yes.
we'll go past that one. So pour in place, I think, is the first one. So 27,676, and if it was engineered wood fiber, would be something significantly less, I'd presume.
This is the increment.
Yeah, that would be the incremental increase.
So this isn't just the cost of this, that's the delta above the wood fiber?
Exactly.
Okay.
What's the lifespan of the poured in place?
The poured in place is again, is a permanent installation. It would require some occasional patching, but it would outlast or be similar to the equipment that's installed there, decades.
Okay, so it doesn't break down after 10 years from the sun?
Not generally, no, but there may be some patching required.
Okay.
So there might be some discolored areas or some different colored areas.
Yeah. Trustee Gregorius?
Yeah, I just want to make just a general statement that if money was not an issue, we'd have all of these. So I feel like we need to be prudent in terms of, these extra features. So otherwise, I'd vote for all of them.
Well, and, I mean, on the budget, I know Martin discussed briefly with regard to the budget and the fact that we didn't receive the grant, which was unfortunate, but we have, as Martin mentioned, reserve funds available to cover all of the alt ads if the board wishes to go in that direction.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend sacrificing other CIP projects to make up the difference.
That's my concern.
But we do have reserve funds available.
So from my perspective, this is something that I think I might stick with the engineered wood fiber for now.
My question was, can you, if we do engineered wood fiber, and it's a total bust because it blows away all the time, can you do this?
Next year?
Why, when you have the equipment installed, or do you have to pick up all the equipment for it and then put it back?
I defer to the folks that have done this before, but my understanding is that the equipment would need to be removed and then replaced once the installation happens. So the answer to your question is...
How much are we talking about to pick that equipment up, pour it, and put it back?
Usually for mobilization, a good round number that we use is about 10% of the value of the of the equipment. So if it's a $27,000, $28,000 item, plan on 10%, $3,000 or so for mobilization or remobilization to come back and do it after the fact.
Trustee Skumatz.
And my understanding is that if we went with ProStack's recommendations, we'd be within 0.5% of budget. That's
Correct. Right at about correct. That $4,000 either way.
Thank you.
And this was not in the
No, it's not,
ProStack
right.
recommendation,
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm just trying to clarify.
Can I just
Yes.
point out one thing on that? It is what it is because that's what we're asked to do.
Exactly, I understand.
Sounds fair.
And that's, I think that was the appropriate task. But I'm concerned about this $30,000 of O&M though, so
Okay.
I will just say that right now.
Operations and, yeah,
Maintenance?
maintenance, yeah. And what was ProStack's feedback on this particular feature?
Well, everybody likes this. I mean, this is a tough one. This was the toughest part of the whole project because we know would just be a nice thing to have. I have to say, on their behalf, we had testimony, comment in one of the meetings from the folks that live on 4th that are at the end of the park, and they say, some of these big windstorms, they just get the stuff in their yard. So the hope is that with the terracing, and you do need to keep that in mind, that with the way this is the rest of it's being constructed, we think that'll ameliorate a lot of that. But it's a nice to have, but it's a lot of money, and we were reluctant to start taking out what we thought were vital features when we could probably get by adequately with the engineered fiber. But it'll be a lot nicer and a lot cleaner park with the board in place.
Yeah, it is a very nice feature, I agree.
So, instead of voting, you want to do a show of hands who prefers this addition?
I think maybe if we go through them all first. and
Yeah, because I
then
have my
come back.
thoughts on some of those that we could probably have, like the scouts do, that would save money, apply to something else. Because I'm a big fan of the port in place. I know it's a lot more money, but every year we're going to have a group come and complain about the wood chips all over the grass. And it's going to be an issue where it won't be an issue if the port place is there, so.
Okay, so there'll be more information that you'll want to have before we come back and vote on these individual ones?
If we can discuss the other ones.
Sure. Okay.
That's fine.
Mayor, if I may introduce one additional piece of information. Trustee Skumatz, you asked about the annual operation and maintenance expense to maintain the entire finished park. The Parks and Open Space Superintendent just reminded me that the $31,000 that I referred to earlier would be the total between what's there now and the incremental increase. Right now, we're at about $21,000 a year that we spend on this. This would be an additional $11,000 to $12,000.
And I assume the vast majority of this is landscaping related,
Right.
So.
Correct. It would be a change to the landscape contractors' maintenance level and their schedule, and also just more irrigation.
Yeah. Okay. Fitness station then?
I missed that. I think that would be cool.
Okay, so moving to that one.
Are they all in one spot, or are they around the perimeter?
They're all in one spot?
Yeah, they're all in one spot, correct.
And these are the pieces that would...
No, those are examples. Those are
Okay.
typical, the types of illustrations.
And these are for the adults to use while their children are playing. These are not for the children to use.
Teenagers could use them.
Teenagers could,
yeah.
but not 6-year-olds or
Yeah.
10-year-olds.
People are big enough to reach up to or climb up to a chair bar from a position of bar.
When
So
you get
yes.
that big, you can use them.
Teenagers.
Consider it a mix of ages, not necessarily tots or toddlers, but anything. It's play equipment, and kids who are old enough to climb up will use it.
So my only comments about this is, while I'm somewhat in favor of this and providing yet another age group that potentially could use the park, when I drive around communities and I see these things, I never see anybody using them. So I don't know if people have a different impression of that.
If I could reflect the outcome of the outreach on this, the public meetings, there was a divide. It had some very enthusiastic supporters and some who just didn't think it was worth it now. And within ProStack, we were divided on this. There are members who just had exactly your comment. We just didn't know if it was going to be used. And then there were others who liked it. So, I mean, there's been that sort of division on this one all the way through. But I will say that when you say that, Mayor, are you thinking of ones that are spread out?
Yeah, the ones in South Boulder or the ones in Louisville, I mean, they are along paths, right, so they're not all in one location.
The concept here is that by having them in a central point, it might change a little bit
The
more
dynamic.
social application.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
So if we don't do this aspect, what happens to it in that spot? Is it developed out or is it not developed out?
It's not.
Okay. So it just curves with the circle then?
Correct. Yeah, so the hard surface that you see now wouldn't have this additional piece to it. What's
Right.
there now?
Just, my reaction is exactly the same as yours. It's an exception when you see them being used, in my view. Might be different here, but
And I agree too, in Beaver Lake and in South Boulder, they're all spread out and they're beautiful, but nobody ever uses them. And I think if we have to make some choices between some features versus others, this would probably be out for me.
And I will say, I'm basically in favor of what the ProStack recommendation is. It stays within budget. That's sort of where I'm coming from. So I'm not looking to really...
that's kind of where I'm at too.
Looking to add a lot of extra.
Yeah. So the
I'm
kite,
concerned that the boulder is mighty expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
the kite trail path, I think it's cool. I think we definitely should have it. I just wonder whether or not that could be an Eagle Scout project, or and I'd like to provide opportunities for Eagle Scouts or the Youth Corps, so
Yeah.
unless you think this would suffer from not having it there for a year, maybe that would be my recommendation.
To clarify, this is that completion of the kite path. It's not the whole kite path. Could you tell us what the whole kite path is, that upper black part too, and then adding the El Dorado Springs and...
Yes, exactly, Trustee Penning. So the part that's highlighted in red is the alternate item. So the northern edge would be completed.
What if we had the mayor's recommendation and had the scouts do the whole darn thing, not just the addition? I mean, how much do we save?
I would,
It's a big project.
yeah,
It's a
my
big project.
recommendation would be, I mean, we're trying to get to a finished part this year, so...
My point is either, it has to sort of be done all the same way to me, in the same materials, in the same manner. So, to me, having the scouts do part of it and having the pros do the other part of it is going to look a little odd. So, is it reasonable to do part of it and have the scouts finish the rest, or should it all be done in the same manner by the same group?
From staff's opinion, because we have a very specific trail type and profile that we've used, and the trails that have been installed by volunteers or through the Youth Corps, I don't think anybody perceives as any different than the professionally installed trails. This is an item that would probably be the first item from the staff perspective that made sense to have a volunteer group do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's not an extensive mobilization cost.
So, when it's finished, it'll look all the same?
Yes.
Great.
I agree with you, Mayor. That
And I
makes
would bet
sense.
that could be done around the same time as the book is finished, because there's plenty of up-and-coming Eagle Scouts that are looking for projects.
Yeah.
So you can still get done this year and have that cost be offset.
And we'd still have materials cost with an Eagle Scout, we just get the labor free, right?
Is this a good project for an Eagle Scout? I mean, it seems like this might be a better project for the Youth Corps, but I don't know, you tell me.
I would like, right, I mean, that's one aspect, and we realized we were too late for that. But as far as, we do think it's important to get it done this year, because otherwise it's going to lead to confusion over what's going on with that part of the park. Is it a field, is it this, is it that? So this will define that eastern part of the park, I think, and it's important to get it done at the same time. There's some way to volunteer help.
What part of that 3,800 is materials, which we would have to have invested anyway, correct? And what is labor?
A I couldn't speak to the contractor's overhead cost and how they formulate what their costs are for both material and installation. The cost for the town to do it or to use volunteers to do it would most likely be, depending on the volume, in the hundreds of materials.
So we're going to save the largest part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
the largest part for any trail project is always going to be labor.
Okay.
Input, yeah.
Sorry. So the next is the boulder, not speaking to the location, but how do people feel about the boulder?
Oh, is it the shelter, maybe the shelter, or?
Oh, did I miss one?
No, back up.
No.
Okay.
So, really expensive. Think it's probably the thing that, from my perspective, is going to be used the most.
Absolutely, I think that's a given, yeah.
Martin, how tall is that? You see a child on there. If a teen's hanging on it, is it teen-sized or is it too small for a teen? That's a teen?
It's a teen or is it 20 or is it?
And it's not a senior.
It looked like a 10-year-old to me, but my eyes are going.
I don't have the specs in front of me. If I could ask Shannon Weber from Design Concepts.
Shannon Weber, Design Concepts. So just to remind you guys, that image that you're seeing is not the boulder that's going in. That's just an example, okay?
Is it similar?
It's similar, but it's 9 feet tall. The piece that we show in this drawing and what it has been bidded on is 9 feet tall.
And how tall is that?
That's going to be 20.
That's taller. That's much taller than that. And we've looked at different sizes, and we've decided to go with the 9-footer. Now, we also looked at, too, it being multi-generational to effect, so that you can get anywhere from your, kind of like your 7, 8-year-olds, all the way up to your teens can use it.
So if you have a 6-foot teen or a 5'10" teen on a 9-foot rise, is that challenging enough to make it interesting to a teen, or are we just going to do the opposite of what, and attracting the small kids down, and no kids will use it down there in the teen area?
Right. So Ian Glass is the one who does these boulders, and I asked him that question, and he makes it, and we don't have an image of it, but he makes them arch. I don't know if arch is really the cantilever over a little bit, so it's a little bit more challenging. It's not so much the height as it is just the strength to get up to the top of the boulder.
So in your opinion, it would be challenging for a teen?
Yeah, he said it goes anywhere from, like I said, the 7 or 8-year-olds all the way up to a teen. We did look at another model that was a little bit more for that age group, but we decided to go with this model here.
I am dogging this point, but is a teen a 13-year-old or is a teen an 18-year-old? There's a lot of difference.
Between, yes, I understand that. So we looked at, he basically said a teen. So it may not be, I think an 18-year-old would be challenged at it, but probably not as much as a 13-year-old would be challenged.
They probably wouldn't be hanging out here after anyway.
Right, yeah.
Once they start to drive, I think, after 16, from 13 to 16, and then 16 and up,
Right.
it's different.
We tried to find a piece that would work as much as we could for all ages. We do have some pieces in the play areas that are climbing features as well, but we all know that your 9 and 10-year-olds are going to want to be on that piece as well. So trying to make it work for both. And we went back and forth with a couple of different models.
I mean, I think this is a major feature. I would definitely vote for it.
Okay. 12 by 12 shelter. So, shade is a premium. I love shade. My perspective is I might hold on this one also, but I don't have strong feelings about that, quite frankly. Trustee Skumats?
I feel really strongly about shade. I think every place, all our parks are lacking shade, and
I feel especially strong about shade this week.
Your best. That's the one piece I feel really strong.
I'm with Trustee Skumats, too. I mean, I think shaded, you can never have enough.
Okay. The dugouts, this is low price tag and something I think is
Definitely,
really
yes.
important.
Yes.
The dugout center, is that something that a volunteer group could put up, or could that be an individual project?
I don't think so.
I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is the backstop. And similar to Scanlon, to our existing fields, this would essentially be a cage with a bench adjoined to.
No roof. So these are benches with chain link.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so people's expectations aren't too high on this one.
So a foul ball comes in, they have no way to get out
Well,
quickly.
if it's a pop-up.
Inhabitable, but
Yeah, so I can't envision T-ball having a huge pop fly.
Look out!
So, okay.
Yeah, definitely, and we've discussed this before.
Bocce court.
I don't quite get it, so.
I'd love to add it if there was, I think it's kind of cool, but I'm not sure that that's going to be, it's
Well,
my
The maintenance is of a concern too, after.
this was recommended by George Guffner Sr. at a meeting, and the appeal really is because this is a neighborhood park with an elderly community around it, and so they feel they have horseshoes.
Horseshoes, I guess.
Isn't that enough?
And next to that, they would like to have something else to do.
Checkerboards.
And they're familiar with bocce, apparently. I'd have to learn it.
Do you have to have a pit for bocce ball, or can't you just throw your little ball out and...
There's a
It's
game you
not
can
enough.
play where you roll the ball out on the grass and then
Right.
try to get close. That's not really bocce. Can't argue over that.
So I figured I would commit 100% that if it was a huge outcry for bocce, that I
can add it
would
next year.
100% support that, but I would add it next year.
Yeah, I agree. Not this year.
Metal artwork, so this is the signage, right?
And how much is it? It's the...
13,000.
So my impression is that I think that it's kind of interesting, but premature for me, because I'd really like this to run through the historic
Yeah.
commission for their thoughts. So, I mean, maybe it already has, but, I mean, I love the idea of the history associated with that and learning something that I'm sure most people don't understand was in existence, but I'm not sure that necessarily would reflect.
If I may add something that, when we looked at this in ProStack, just so you're clear, because it's a question we had, all of the other historical elements are there, and we're not going through the whole park, we're only going through the alternate items here. So the detail work in the backstop.
Right.
The imprinting in the concrete. All of those, on
That's
the
still there.
shelter, all of that,
Yeah.
all of those details are there. So we're not losing the custom and interpretive stuff. It's just these giant metal structures that we had envisioned as being kind of cool to have.
I think they would be cool to have, and I love history, and I love being the opportunity of sharing it, but I think it's too, I wouldn't recommend it right now.
Premature.
Premature,
Yes.
But Jim, could you walk us along that kite trail? How does somebody know it's a kite trail and its significance and not just a path? I mean, is it going to have those mileage designations and the Boulder, Denver sign, or what's it going to have to demark it?
Sure, if you think to the previous presentations, when you saw some interpretive signage, some of the elements that I think Jim was referring to are included in the base bid package, and the interpretive signage, the recreation in the sandblasting underneath the 20-foot by 20-foot shelter that recreates the industrial line camp and the outdoor classroom components all have a lot of information included with them, and including one of the elements is an interpretive sign that recounts what the kite trail is.
Correct.
Are we going to mark along it, though? Is it going to be Boulder, all the stops? Are those going to be included in the space plan?
So it reminds me of the wayfinding signs,
Right.
and those are included.
Great, okay.
Okay.
But since it's a soft surface trail, it's not sandblasted.
Okay.
So, premature maybe?
Yes. What's that?
Premature.
Yeah, for this year, yeah.
Okay. Let's, do you want to talk about the Boulder location, or Jesse Hansen had some other thoughts?
After just the conversation, I like the ProStack recommendation, providing we keep the boulder in the place that we originally agreed on and keep the play structure in place.
Yeah, I like that too.
And it's assumed, I assume, that it will be placed safely. If it's a foot too close to the speeding kids coming down on their skateboards, I'm assuming somebody's got that in mind when they watch this installation or whatever, and we're not ever going to install anything unsafe. You know, I'm assuming safety. So if I'm wrong, somebody's got to correct me.
And I'd weigh in that I think it makes a lot of sense since it's a multi-age, starting at 7, 8, and going up to 13 or so probably. And I think it's going to look nice to put it at the apex of where the park is, so everybody can use it. So I'll have the dissenting vote on that, maybe.
No, you're not alone.
Other thoughts?
So we're going to go through item by item, or are we just going to talk?
Well, I think that what we've got to basically is pro stack recommendation, less the kite trail path, which, my understanding, where that went.
Well, just based on the discussion, I hope we're saying kite trail, and if we can find a volunteer to do it, I'd hate to have it be left out.
No, I'm fully anticipating that this would be part of it, but I'd like to see if a volunteer could do it within a timely manner.
And I would be in favor of the pro stack recommendation as well, but I really would want the first feature of the
parking place?
Yeah, I know it's $31,000, but I think it would make it. I mean, if you feel like there's some way where we can come up with that money, then I would say do it from the very, very start. Let's not take things out next year and then.
Well,
it would make the park look, I mean, I don't know, it just looks great.
I'm with you on that, Ely, but I'm going back to a cost perspective. I think that we can, the amount of money, the little bit of money that's going to cost to put that wood fiber in this year or next year, then we could save and put the port in place in probably a couple of years.
I'm looking at Matt. If Matt says it's doable,
We can, anything's doable. We have the capacity to do all eight ads.
Right, but we're not saying all 8. We're saying do what process and add this one.
The response is yes, we could do the port in place as well.
So we spent a good deal of money this year, the plan development and all this kind of stuff. We keep saying we have the money to do these extra things. And
well, just to, I had Paul give me some specific numbers.
While you're looking for that, so what I love is, and I get where you're coming from, is that, you know, if we can do the kite trail path with a volunteer organization in a timely manner, we come in right at 700,000.
Yeah, that's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
So,
pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Our reserves at the end of 2011 were $5 million plus, and then estimated reserves at the end of the 2016 budget, because we do 5-year budgets, is just over $1 million.
So I know that this, in terms of those
Just
numbers,
for perspective.
is chump change, but I get worried that I have the same feeling that this is becoming a little bit of a slippery slope, and, well, we have money to do X, Y, and Z, and since we might be spending either a lot of money on an interchange or need to do inter-fund transfers for the Windy Gap project, I'd like to be very cautious, although I understand where you're coming from.
I kind of agree. We actually, by budgeting to finish this project this year, have deviated from prior practice, and I think I'd like to stay as close to that budget as we can.
And I think that
I think the ProStack recommendations, personally, I'm right on board with it, and including the getting the trail done. If we can't get a volunteer organization lined up, I'd like to include that 3,000.
Sounds fair.
And I could be the lone voice I could be the lone voice with the.
And I just have one question. I did miss a meeting on this, so there's probably been discussed. We're talking about park blowing away and community park. They use pebbles in the playground area. I'm sure they don't blow away. So.
Could we have any public comment on what we've discussed just now, or is that out of?
I was hoping that there'd be some public comment.
Can I just add that
some more?
I spoke to Trustee Williams prior to the meeting with regard to this, and her recommendation, her comment was to go with ProStack's recommendation.
And I think I heard that Pebbles don't work because it isn't ADA compliant.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Then, make a motion, I guess.
Well, let's see.
Move it with ProStack's recommendation.
Well, so I want to make sure, I mean, I think there's a few of us
We
that
have-
want
have the
ProStack's
boulder issue.
recommendation with ProStack's original recommendation, which was having a boulder in one spot and the play equipment in the middle.
Correct.
That's their recommendation of,
Yes.
okay.
So let's
yeah.
do, I think we could do this just as a little...
Sub-vote?
Yeah, it won't be really a vote, but just a general show of hands. Who wants the boulder at the central location? Okay. Well, then I think we know where it's going. So, then I think we can entertain a motion.
Good.
Chris, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Sure. Where's the,
I'll have the center like that anyway.
hold on. Did I miss it?
Yeah, you did.
I'm actually really proud of all the work that's has been done. This has been a long time, on this board for over 6 years, and, I remember almost from the first month that I was here that we had talked about Town 9. It's so nice to see it coming to fruition. I can't wait till it's done and see the finished product. So I'm very excited about it.
I meant to say before, just that, as we all know now, it will not be Town 9, and there is a naming process that we're going to be proposing, just to get that.
Can we nominate Town 9?
So, well, you have it, or...
Yeah, but one question, can we do it, we're going to put in a cost, so can we put a max of $703,824, that includes the trail, so if we don't get a volunteer to do it, at least...
Then we're still
We have to include the change money too.
Yeah, additional 4,000 for the Boulder location.
You probably
The
need,
current location is more? Oh, okay.
The ProStack's recommended location is slightly more.
So 707,000.
Yeah.
708.
And why is that? Because we have to move the equipment if we got to put the boulder in the middle.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
When you move the boulder up there, you already have the EWF and the curb wall. So when we put the boulder down below, the climbing feature below, we're going to have to put in a curb wall and the EWF, the safety surfacing. And then there's drainage and things like that that go underneath that. So we're creating a pit, basically, is what we're doing for that boulder.
So we need to add, so it'd be actually $707,000?
708.
Yes.
708 probably.
You got to think you'll vote for $4,000?
Can we just make it a 710,000 even, just so in case...
Right here, 715.
Okay, now we can have the first feature.
So we can put that just in the motion.
It's all right. Okay.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number R-43, Series 2012, a resolution of the town, of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a construction contract with Urban Farmer, Inc. for Town Line Park for a maximum amount of $710,000 as approved by ProStack.
Motion by trustee Hanson, second by trustee Gergos. Any further discussion? Trustee Skumatz?
I just want to raise the issue that at some point, we should think about where the O&M cost is coming from this park, et cetera, and if it's the $100,000 that, that maybe comes to us annually or something, I think we need to be thinking about that as part of this planning process, and we can't keep using that $100K to build more infrastructure and never cover the operations costs for the things that we built since that funding came in place.
Okay. My only comment is that I congratulate the board, of which I was a minor part 14 years ago, whenever that was. 13, 14 years ago, when this was going to be multi-family housing, and that the board was able to get this from the developer for an asset for the community. So I think it's long time coming, and it's exciting to see actually something happening. So I'll be in favor of this.
And
So
nice to see
trustee,
no development.
I'm sorry, Tom Clark.
We're spending money, I think so, right? We're spending money.
Do we get a second?
Oh, that's excellent. This was a, right, close the public hearing, sorry.
Do I need to reread this, though?
I don't think so, unless,
No, it's okay.
okay. So motion and a second, and roll call.
Okay, Skumatz?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Muffle?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Gergos?
Yes.
And Sorrell?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, ProStack, and everybody involved with this.
Yeah, it's great.
So, that brings us to item 9, adoption of resolution making appointments for the Planning Commission, Open Space Advisory Committee, Parks Recreation, Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee, Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, and Historical Commission. I want, for the record, just to note that we have another application for the Planning Commission, and if it's reasonable from the board's perspective, is that we won't be doing those tonight, and we'll finalize that interview process, and this will come back. So,
Yeah, so there's a couple of other candidates for the planning commission that then they wouldn't, I mean, do we consider them for another position tonight, or?
No, I think we'll consider all of these members, but I just don't want to, since we haven't done the interview, that I would recommend just holding off and doing it all at one time for the planning commission solely. Okay? That brings us to the Open Space Advisory Committee, and I'll entertain a motion or thoughts. Trustee Skamats?
I think I was willing to move to make the motion.
Yeah.
We've got more openings than people.
Okay. Trustee Pennington?
No, excuse me, she's talking.
I was just going to make the motion.
She's going to make a motion.
The confusion I have is Emily, what's her last name?
Cedarburg.
Cedarburg had applied for ProStack, and somehow we've got her on OSAC, and I don't understand how that happened. Can somebody remind me?
It was her second choice. I think
But
OSAC
don't
was.
we have, I have to say, who are we recommending for ProStack?
See, that's where I have an issue, because there's a couple of people that there was one that I might actually say I recommend for the planning commission, unless we decide that this newest applicant is more suitable, then I would say, okay, well, I would say he goes to ProStack. So I can't recommend at least one of these people, actually a couple of them, because Emily plays a role in that as well, because if I recommend this one gentleman, then Emily, I would recommend to go down to OSAC. So
we have, so we have 2 vacancies on Planning Commission, 3 on ProStack, 5 on RCAC, and 5 on OSAC, and then 2 on Historic Commission. We had 3 applicants who indicated their preference was for Planning Commission: Rosita Williams, Jarvi Worcester, and Bob
Ivanauskas.
Ivanauskas, thank you. And then we had 3 for ProStack: Steve Smith, Ron Summer, and Emily Cedarburg. That was their preference. English Hopkins and Nathan Ruff, preference was OSAC. And then we had Marcus Deloitte for RCAC. And then Michelle Horton had indicated ProStack, RCAC, or OSAC.
That's right. So, but we also have this new applicant that we're going to consider.
Right. So,
and his only choice was Planning Commission.
That is correct.
Mr. Ivanauskas said first choice was Planning Commission, second
Correct.
choice was ProStack. So I currently have Mr. Ivanauskas as a Planning Commissioner. That would be my choice. But if we interview the new applicant...
Well, and, sorry, didn't mean to cut you
go
off, but
ahead.
if, for instance, next meeting, if the 2 that are appointed to the Planning Commission, and one of those happens to be somebody that you thought would be good for Planning Commission but wasn't appointed, we can still go, we wouldn't have any vacancies on ProStack potentially, but we would still have vacancies on OSAC, RCAC, and Historic Commission.
Well, it all depends on what we do with Emily, whether we
That's right.
ProStack vacancy.
Should we start with RCAC?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Good there.
Motion by anybody? Trustee Skamats?
Where are we going to handle the terms?
RCAC?
Are these resolutions ready to go?
That was what I tried to ask earlier.
Yeah, we will fill in
told me
the
that.
edits.
Fill in names.
We'll have to fill in with blanks.
Yeah.
Blanks say vacancies.
But we don't have to fill those in tonight?
I'm sorry.
Do we have to
After you
fill
vote
those in
on
tonight?
them, we will fill them in and then get them ready for the mayor's signature.
Okay, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So we had, several months ago, I thought we agreed on a new process to appoint members to the advisory committees. So are we going to just do it in this resolution and nominate them to it, or are we going to do the vote and written down?
Well, we were going to do that with the planning commission because we had more applicants than
Okay.
positions available. All the other committees, we have more vacancies than applicants.
Okay, fine.
Trustees comments?
Well, what's confusing me is that we're approving a resolution with none of the new names in it. I thought the new names were in the resolution.
I had no clear direction on who was going where, so.
So we're-
If there are more blanks than people, I thought that those were filled in. Sorry.
We have to fill them in with the motion.
Yeah, you can, as you make each motion, add whatever names you would like to add. And
All right, so someone will feed me names? Okay. I'd like to move Town Superior Resolution Number R-44, Series 2012, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, making appointments to the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee with the addition of the names, the new names to be
Marcus
Deloitte
and Michelle Horton.
and Michelle Horton. I thought Michelle had something else first, Joyce.
That's correct, right? RCAC with Michelle Horton.
She listed, the three committees that Michelle listed was ProStac, RCAC, and OSAC as potentials.
So we're giving her a third favor.
Yeah.
That's,
I'm sorry, that's my choice.
No,
I want to, is that the rest, I'm assuming the rest of the board had the same choice.
It's fine with me. I mean, there's additional spots on RCAC available, so it's not like we're taking away from somebody.
Right.
Are you agreeing with Lisa?
I gave her the names.
Okay, yes, okay, that's fine with me.
Somebody needs to second the motion, number one.
I have a question first.
Yes.
Aren't we appointing the other people at the same time?
Right. Her motion
but
said.
that's already in the motion.
They're already there.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
So I misunderstood because I thought that those people were not being reappointed, but maybe
Yeah, they are.
my calendars. I'm looking at the wrong schedule.
Oh, not on that one. There are no reappointments on RCAC,
I didn't think so. Maybe there.
but there are on some others.
There aren't others. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? By Trustee Hanson, discussion. This is for RCAC. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. So,
Matt, was that correct? Were there no reappointments on RCAC, or were there some of those one additional year, et cetera?
Now, there's Lisa Nightbarger, Don Bement, are both June of 2014. Cynthia Nielsen is June 2013.
Okay.
The other three vacant, I'm sorry.
Rachel Bray.
Rachel Bray, June 2015.
Is that according to the spreadsheet or according to the resolution?
The resolution.
How about the spreadsheet? Can we double check that?
Not easily.
Yeah. Phyllis, I believe, when she prepared these resolutions, double-checked them against the chart.
Took the names from the resolutions that were passed
Right.
with the years on.
Okay.
But in fact, some may be reappointed in that the resolution we did, some of them may have been reappointed in that 1+3, 2+3 scenario. So I just want to make sure we've just authorized, voted yes for the reappointment plus the addition of the new ones as it applies.
Yeah, that's what we just voted on, yes. That's correct.
So it looks like, can you go back to that? It looks like Lisa Nybarger is up for reappointment for a 2-year term.
right.
Don Bement, same The idea is additional one-year appointment eligible for the second three-year term. And the same thing with Rachel Gray.
Correct.
So we're going to reappoint them now to that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we just did, I believe, right?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
Well, we only...
And we added 2 people.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so can I go,
Does it say?
can I go to Historical Commission?
Okay.
And we don't have any new applicants, but we have reappointments. So, somebody want to read that resolution?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-45.
Yes.
How did I guess
Very
that?
nice.
Okay. Series 2012, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior reappointing members of the Superior Historical Commission, specifically
Well, who were Bob Morgan, Karen Walagorski, Denzel Ackland, Larry Dorsey, Errol Walagorski, David Cartwright, and Mary Cartwright.
Isn't it just as listed in the...
That's
in the
listed,
resolution?
either way. So, motion by trustee Gregoris, second. Trustee Skumatz, all in favor? Unanimous. Then can I go to ProStack?
OSAC.
Okay, we can do OSAC, that's fine.
Before we go to any motion, I don't know how specific we need to be on this, but
Because one position is a year long.
let me stutter around here. I thought this one said the same thing about Jim resigning as chairman, as a member of this. Okay, the fourth whereas, according to ordinance, whatever, Series 2012, no, the last clause, no person shall serve on more than one committee at a time. Therefore, Jim Payne has resigned from OSAC. That is, I believe, a factual error. He resigned from OSAC because we deleted the provision that the chairman of ProStack serve as an active member on OSAC and vice versa. So
I
the
think that's more
rationale...
accurate as well.
Huh?
I believe that's a more accurate description as
So-
well.
How do you want to state that?
And for historical purposes, I think we should correct it. So
Although I think both are true.
whatever language Kendra would sub in for that,
Both of those statements are true, though.
there, but factually, that
You can add, you
resignation.
can add another one.
Yeah,
Or we can
Another
change
whereas,
that
if you
one.
like, or...
well, I actually think it should be corrected.
I think it's correct at the moment, but either way, it doesn't make a difference. Maybe
It is in fact factually correct, but gives the wrong impression, I think. Anyway, having said that,
Do you want
I'll
to
go
read it?
with what the attorney suggests as a language.
She's
That's up
confused.
to you. I mean, it's up to you if you want to
have an and.
The attorney's,
Well, it's just where the chairman of ProStack, ProStack no longer will serve on OSAC, therefore Jim Payne has resigned from OSAC.
okay.
And since they can't participate in two committees, it just adds another comma after one or the other.
Do you want to?
And also,
Makes no difference
since
to
they
me,
can,
honestly.
okay, that's fine too.
Do you want to read it or not?
I don't care.
Is it that important that we have to even include that last sentence at all? I mean, why do we have to mention that Jim Payne resigned from OSAC at all?
It's
Jim Payne's part of it, he kind of
We can
goes-
go back to the resolutions and have that
Right,
information.
it provides the historical tracking, doesn't it?
Okay,
So, we're at OSAC.
yes.
Well, I don't think we have clear direction on what you want there for that last.
Yeah, I mean, it's
word.
whatever you, it's a whereas clause, legally,
Yeah,
Legally, you're fine the way it is.
yes.
don't care.
I'm okay with
It's
it.
to you if you want to change it.
I was happy to hear the clause noting the,
So how would you say
clearly
that?
delineating the fact that there's no longer that, whether or not the person was on more than one committee, I think saying that
The chairman of ProStack no longer shall serve on OSAC. Jim Payne has
Or
resigned
automatically
from...
serve or something like that.
Shall not, no longer shall automatically serve on OSAC.
And include that?
Sure.
You can, but I would just go to the real reason. But I am...
It's very personal, but I think they're both accurate. Either way.
Except, but one of the points was that a person could serve on more than one committee if we made an exception to that.
Right.
So that's the one that gives me a little heartburn to have that one in here, so.
Okay, can you add the attorney will give us some language where that is added?
She just named some language that I thought worked okay.
I mean, I'm still confused with what we're trying to do, so.
We're adding the addition that because the ProStack chair does not automatically serve on.
It should just say here, whereas, according to Ordinance O-2, Series 2012, adopted on February 27, 2002, 2012, the chairman of ProStack no longer will serve automatically on OSAC, therefore Jim Payne has resigned from OSAC.
That works for me.
Either way, I think I don't care. Makes no
It's the
difference.
historical record.
Well, if you want to do that, then either way.
And do the same thing on the ProStack.
And then we did
too?
a converse or whatever on the,
That's fine, let's do it.
Yes.
Just add half a sentence and,
Yes. Okay.
okay,
So I think we're at OSAC still.
okay.
And we have the various appointments at the dates that are reappointments at the dates.
Let's do the new people.
And so the new people are,
Well, we haven't read we haven't,
well, just so before we read the ordinance to make sure, because there was some,
I have two people that I'm for sure that I would vote for now tonight, but there's two more that I'm not sure.
Those could be made.
who are those?
who are the two?
The two for sure, Nathan and English.
Correct. I agree with Chris.
That's fine.
and not,
Not the people
Nobody
up for
else?
PC.
what's that?
Not the people up for PC, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, so I even have
People up for PC.
a
get
suggestion
paid
of,
later.
We're talking OSAC here, so the PC doesn't play in OSAC. It was,
Right, because you
it's
can
Emily.
be on both.
Where to place Emily is
Yeah.
Emily and then Harvey too. Is it
Yeah.
Harvey or Jarvie? I'm sorry.
I think it's
Harvey.
Jarvie.
Jarvie.
I think we need some communication with them.
Yeah, because there's a good chance he may not get on the planning commission, but he said he would be open to one of the other advisory committees. He just didn't know about them.
Right.
So OSAC, it seemed, or actually ProStack would be a good one. Right?
ProStack's a big demand.
So we have two with two remaining spots.
Exactly.
that we do next
We
meeting.
have three remaining spots on ProStack.
We do.
Okay, we're just on OSAC right now, so that's one thing at a time.
3 remaining spots on OSAC.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm in agreement with that.
I am too. Okay.
So this is coming back.
Does OSAC have a quorum?
When it clarifies after further discussion.
So in a couple of months.
No, next meeting.
Well, we have to interview.
We have to do this gentleman. So it's at least a month from now.
Well, but because there are so many openings on this, Emily might self-select.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're interested in her for some committee. If she self-selects OSAC,
Can I make a recommendation?
Yep.
I think you can appoint, it sounds to me, from the discussion, English Hopkins and Nathan Ruff to OSAC tonight.
Tonight, right.
Along with the other current members. And then it sounds like the uncertainty is with ProStack and Planning Commission, and you can make those appointments at the next meeting if you wanted.
well,
I have two for sure for ProStack.
But we need to have conversations also with
Right.
the people.
Right.
so we can proceed on part of it and finish it up
Yeah, I mean,
at a future
I think
meeting.
you're saying not move forward with anybody on ProStack right now.
well, or you could fill one or two.
I think we're going to agree on at least one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
You should make those
Yeah.
tonight.
So do we have a motion?
Yes, no, well, I'm waiting to read it, but,
He's waiting for an OSAC.
okay. I would like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution number R-46, series 2012. The resolution of the Board Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, making appointments to the Open Space Advisory Committee.
Motion by Trustee Gross, second.
Do we have to say as amended? The language?
Which names?
As amended.
To include
To include.
English Hopkins.
English Hopkins.
And Nathan Ruff.
Nathan Ruff.
And the dates are, so 13 or 14.
As amended, make sure you...
As amended.
And we need the dates.
The dates, so is
But
it,
you were going to draw those from a hat, I thought, to figure out who got the 14, who got the 13.
we'll get the hat out then.
Yeah.
Right now?
Do it in alpha order. Who's top? H is top, R?
English.
English
Whatever.
Bachelor.
Yes, you be the first one to...
Here. Can Elia pick? I'll put him on in my hand.
How do you mean? I don't
We
care.
have to pick out a hat.
I think because partial terms don't apply.
Just a whole new statute on using anything on paper that's not, so I would suggest not doing that.
I would
Sorry, there's a whole new statute on this now, on secret ballots, of getting you a memo.
No, this is picking in public.
It's just picking which chick.
This is picking in public. Nathan does the
Say there's a whole
2013.
statute.
How do you suggest we do it?
Well, my recommendation would be, because partial terms don't apply,
Right.
they're going to be able to serve either
More than
7
more
more
than
years or
6,
8 more years.
Correct.
So
So
Alphabetical order?
alphabetically,
Correct.
His English comes first. There you go.
Hopkins first, Ruff second.
Okay.
So English serves 8.
Yes.
and
If she wants to,
Nathan,
we want her.
I think Nathan's going to be fine with that.
yeah.
He's pretty easy going.
Well, it's just when the term
I don't think we
expires.
should
So just to be clear, just for
Maybe a
purposes
lot
of
hard
this resolution,
calling
yeah.
it 8.
One,
I want to call
two,
it 1 or 2 or 3. I
Yeah,
don't.
correct.
Term expires in 13 or 14.
Yes, all we need for this resolution is to state whether the term expires in June 2014 or June 2013.
Correct.
Exactly.
Okay?
And so it's English in 14.
English in 14.
Okay.
Motion, was there a second?
Yes.
Second by Trustee Skumanis, all in favor? Okay?
Are we going to do Prostec tonight? That's the last one, right?
If,
And not the
I would like to do as much as we can.
Okay, the 2 are Steve Smith. then?
Steve Smith and Ron Summer.
We agree with that.
Yep.
Smith and Summer, yeah, which one comes first?
Smith.
Alpha first.
Okay.
But we have to change the language. per the
The
other.
language has changed the same as the OSAC, so
Okay.
in reverse. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Would like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-47, Series 2012. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, making appointments to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee. As stated, Steve Smith
And Ron Summer.
and
I
Ron
think
Summer.
both can expire in 2014.
Are they do?
I think so. That's on my
That's what
first.
it says in
Good. That's easy.
Okay, and the Planning Commission, we're suspending it for now until we interview.
So so we have all the candidates.
Oh, no,
I'm
wait,
sorry,
1 second, we'll just let's finish this.
Second.
Second, by Trustee Skumanis.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. So we have 4 applicants for the Planning Commission.
And we have 3 spots?
Correct.
We have 2 spots.
2 spots.
2 spots. Yep.
And then we have,
And we have 1 vacancy remaining on BOSAC and 3 on OSAC.
and there's nobody else the board feel comfortable appointing to OSEC?
I would like an additional
feel
conversation.
comfortable. I just don't know that the person is interested in. That's what we have to.
He wants to get their feedback a little bit.
And then, I'm sorry, but can I get the board to approve the resolution for Planning Commission so that we have,
Oh,
currently they're
yes, yes,
appointed in
thank you.
April, and I'd
Yes,
like to
thank
have
you.
everybody in June.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay.
as in this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution or
848.
848?
448.
I just thought, yeah, that's what I thought, Series 2012, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior making appointments to the Planning Commission.
motion, second by trustee Skumats. All in favor?
No names, right? We're not...
They're all listed.
Oh, just
right?
the... Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who said it?
I did.
Mrs. Gomez.
Okay. So, can you please read for me who is not?
Yeah, for the planning
Who's
commission.
not appointed?
Right, that would help.
Did we vote on the planning commission yet?
Only for
So,
It's reappointment.
the following,
I
That's what I
wanted
just
to
did.
discuss something.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I heard John Craycraft say he wanted to not continue, but I thought he was going to see through the comprehensive plan update process. Is that not the case?
that is not the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Rosita Williams,
Mhm.
Jarby, I'm not going to...
Yeah, that's fine.
Bob, Emily. That's
And the
it.
guy.
And, yeah, Bob Martz.
The Bob Mummers has
Is
said
the-
only.
Only
Planning commission, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And same with our Jarvie. It was only planning commission, but he did say that he wasn't aware of the others and he could look
Right,
into it.
right.
Bob Ivanauskas said planning commission or ProStack, and Emily Cedarberg said ProStack first, OSAC second.
And so I'm trying to wrap my mind around what the next step here is.
Well-
So we're going to do an interview.
We'll do, yes, interview on the 9th, although there's going to be a number of
Only 4 people.
board
Is
members
Deb
gone.
here on the 9th?
3.
Interview, well,
Is Deb on the
If
9th?
Deb is not here, then we don't have a...
Is Deb on
but you can do an interview, and we can review
No, I
the
think
interview
Deb's
on...
here.
You don't have to vote, you can just do an interview.
Yeah, we'll tape it and have it available.
I mean, you're not going to take an action, just do an interview for it.
So appointments
You never know.
changes.
could proceed on the 9th, but with 3 trustees gone, I would suggest wait till the
So we're
23rd.
wrapping up planning commission on the 23rd.
And
And
ProStack.
making additional.
And OSAC.
So,
And ProStack.
right, so that's taken care of. So, and you'll notify the people that were appointed tonight.
Correct.
And you will communicate with,
Emily to see if she's even interested in those that.
Well, she said she was.
she said she
Here's what
was.
we'll do. We
So that's
will,
what, I don't know.
we will follow up with all the individuals who weren't appointed to a committee tonight to let them know what the process is going to be and the reason for it, and also confirm
Their
their
hierarchical
preference
choices,
and
yes.
if they have any desire on any other committee or not, and
Bob
then
would be the
provide
one
that
to ask of.
information to the board.
Especially Jarvie, he's...
Jarvie,
Right,
Bob.
right, okay.
We'll ask all of them. We'll
Right,
have
yeah.
the same questions.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I would hate that,
Believe it or not,
just
we-
because someone was willing to be flexible, their first choice was ProStack, to pick somebody who said, no, I'm going to be only ProStack, if the other person is more qualified. So I would really hate to do that. To have somebody lose out because they're willing to be flexible. So-
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why this next interview is kind of important, because we may say he's by far the best candidate for a planning commission, or we might say, yeah, Bob is much better, right, Jarvie or whoever. Okay.
Okay, anything else to come before the board tonight?
We will see you tomorrow night,
Let's see, adjournment at what time?
9:20.
9:20. What's that? Oh, adjournment at 9:20.
No way.
Wow.
Meeting adjourned.